Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the June 28th Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee meeting. Beautiful Friday morning in Miami Beach. You'll have to excuse me if I'm not able to master this new microphone system, so hopefully my colleagues will bear with me. This may be a trial and error. That being said, want to kick it over to the city attorney to kick us off, then we'll go to our CFO for announcements, and then we're going to get right into things.
Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 toll-free and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462 #, or log in to the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which is again 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you, Chair. A few announcements. We have deferrals. Item 1, Item 6, Item 12, 19, 22, and 23 are deferred. Item 16 has a 10:45 a.m. time certain. Number 14 has an 11 a.m. time certain. The item 25, which is actually a future item, Commissioner Bott has requested to be added to as a co-sponsor, and will be recorded that for the July meeting. And there's a request, Commissioner Fernandez won't be with us, and he has requested that his items number 7 and number 11 are moved to the July 12th FERC budget workshop. And if you're okay with that, we could show those items to just be discussed at the workshop.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just one last thing for the order is that July 12th budget workshop, which originally going to be at 10:30, will be moved up to 9 a.m. So it'll be a 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Slot. So that is it. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we get going? And believe that we're going to hear agenda item number 13. This is the conveyance of air rights easement at Ferry Lane. Although before we move forward, one of the things I'll let our city attorney introduce, I really want to be sure that we had the right amount of community engagement, so that's something that I want to focus on during this discussion.
If I could read the item into the record. Number 13, discuss conveyance of air rights easement, MMS7 Farley Lane LLC, item number 13.
Sir, you want to come up and introduce the item?
Good morning, committee members. My name is Joseph Pardo Law in Miami Beach. I represent the applicant, MMS Ferry. This is an item that was brought to you at the last committee meeting, and it was deferred for a month to allow us to engage with the community members. The essence of the item is that the applicant is seeking to purchase air rights from the city over a small alleyway on Ferry Lane so that it can combine two parcels with a unified development in the neighborhood. We understood from the last meeting that we wanted community engagement, and since the last meeting, I was able to reach out to and obtain close to 70% of the support of the residents on Ferry Lane, including each of the neighbors of the applicant's property, the other residents, and the property owners, including the entire apartment complex directly adjacent to the property. We've also reached out to BIRA. We intend to have a holistic conversation with them about potential allocation of the use of the sale proceeds. We defer to the committee on its judgment, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any representatives of BIRA possibly on the line? Because I do want to see how they feel about engagement and moving forward.
I'm not sure who they would be or who.
Or me, I'll hand it over to my colleague Commissioner Dominguez to make a comment, and if you see anybody raise their hands and want to provide public comment, want to give priority to that.
Yeah, all I see is a 571 number, captioner Jasmine, Cart, Spanish.
So we'll leave it, Commissioner Dominguez, why don't we turn it over to you? And if there are members of BIRA that are online and would be able to dial in just with their collective thoughts and how they would choose to proceed, it would be much appreciated.
Thank you so much. So when this item came up last time, I had been contacted by the Belle Isle Residents Association, and they had not been contacted. And I was under the impression that at that meeting, the city administration would reach out to BIRA, and as of last night, they had not heard from the city. Also, this is a resident's right to know item, and it wasn't tagged as such, so that's why BIRA was upset. I have email connected Joe, who's also a Belle Isle resident, with the BIRA board so that they can have communications. The biggest concern with BIRA is how is the money going to be allocated to benefit BIRA? And with that, I'll give it back to the chair.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Dominguez. And from my perspective, I didn't see any issues with this. It seems like modest impact, but I guess it'll be amongst our colleagues' decision if we want to essentially move this forward out of committee and essentially ensure that BIRA has their voices addressed between now and next commission meeting, because there's nothing that essentially prevents us from moving it out of committee, engaging them, and if we get to a point where they don't agree, we can essentially pivot in commission, but I want to be sure that my colleagues feel the same. Mr. Pardo.
And I want to make an affirmative representation that I will reach out and continue to engage with BIRA and have those conversations directly with them between now and, God willing, when it goes to committee, to commission.
Excellent. Mr. Public Works Director?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Joe Gomez, Public Works Director. As far as we're concerned, we're in favor of granting this air rights. There is a public benefit associated with that we've outlined in the memo, which is approximately $803,250 in favor of the city.
Excellent. Mr. City Attorney, any engagement on the phone?
Nobody has his or her hand raised. There is a phone number there that might have been a dial-in, but I have no way of knowing who that is.
Then I guess Commissioner Dominguez, I want to get, I know this is your backyard, your neighborhood, and very near and dear to you, so I want to give deference. Where I'm at, I'd be comfortable moving this forward, given it seems relatively benign. We have a positive affirmation for this project that will engage with BIRA, and it seemed like their concerns weren't about whether this project has merit, rather just how these funds would be allocated. So I'd be comfortable moving it out of committee, but if you have a different feeling, I'm going to give deference to you.
I'm on the same page. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then does anybody want to make a motion to move this forward to the commission? I'll second.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and I will second.
So this is being moved to commission with a favorable recommendation?
Yes, please show, Commissioner Bott, you,
Yep.
okay.
All in favor, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to hold you to that, so. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 10, discussion regarding fitness and fashion, just fitness festival in March, Miami, March 2025. Let me hand it over to my colleague, Commissioner Suarez, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a while ago, we had a serious problem with Memorial Day. And Memorial Day was pretty much solved with the Air and Sea show. And I'm hoping that we can do something similar for spring break. There's been a lot of talk of bringing mega concerts to South Beach for spring break, and a host of other activities. I think if we really want to rebrand Miami Beach during the month of March, what better way to do it than a March Fitness Month? Can, Miami Beach is synonymous with the sun, the weather, the beaches, and what better place to have a a host of fitness events in the world in the month of March for Miami Beach. And so I wanted to bring this to my colleagues, check the temperature, and see how we feel for a possibly 2026 start. I know from what I've heard from my colleagues on the dais that I think 2025 we want to repeat what we did this year. I think for 2026 we have to be a little bit more forward thinking and realize that we can't just shut everything down for the month of March. I mean, it's one of our best times of the year. And I asked Lisette to engage and do some very high level discussions on what we can bring. And I think in a perfect world, we would have 1 week of perhaps High Rocks, another week would be CrossFit. It's very similar to the Wadapalooza that happens in across the bay, and that could really rebrand our month of March for Miami Beach. So I'd love to see what my colleagues think about this. I think it's going to be a great step in deciding the future of what March is going to look like for Miami Beach.
Yeah, I love this idea. Let me kick it over to Lizette. Lizette, happy Friday. Please give us your overview here.
Happy Friday. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Lisa Garcia-Rogante, Director of Tourism and Culture, City of Miami Beach. As Commissioner Suarez keyed it up properly, we have had high-level conversations with High Rocks since we hosted Miami Beach Live in 2023. High Rocks is a hit-type festival. They've grown exponentially. They're very excited to come back to Miami Beach in 2026. We also had high-level conversations with Loud and Live, the production company that oversees the Reebok CrossFit Wadapalooza that's been for many years in Bayfront Park. They are also excited to bring a CrossFit event. As the memo states, we are recommending, should the city commission approve this, to focus on the 2 highest impact weekends as we've done in the past for March of 2026.
Excellent. I personally love this idea. I'm not going to rehash all the positive attributes that it could bring. I think this is something that can in turn pay for itself, especially I really like that you're not trying to force a square peg in a round hole in terms of timing and rush something that is going to be a critical part of our future and try and get it done the next 8 or 9 months, that we have essentially over a year to put this together and really, help double down on our message of breaking up with spring break. And then we've discussed what we don't want to be. This really shows who we do want to be. So I'm fully supportive here. We'll get some of the details worked out, but from a high level concept, I'm supportive. Commissioner Bott.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this as well. I think it ties in really well with our Blue Zone Cities initiative that we're undertaking. And I am eager to see what comes out of it. I like the idea that it's being focused on 2 months, 2 weeks, not, taking over the entire month. I think that's a good way to proceed. Among the people that you speak with, and there are going to be a lot of different factors that decide that inform the decision about how to proceed and what it looks like and with whom we partner. But it might be interesting and fun to also have somebody like Zumba. I know they have a super high energy, very impactful, and much beloved annual festival. Like everybody who teaches Zumba apparently goes and dances their brains out. And, I think that might be a fun counterpoint to something like High Rocks or CrossFit. Like, one could be super hardcore and one could be a little bit more family friendly and fun. And not that that's not fun, but it's a different kind of fun. What's that? Well, but it's a different kind of vibe, and so it might be fun to kind of balance them out. So as you go along and do your due diligence, maybe you could factor something like that into the mix as well. But I'm very
Absolutely.
supportive of this.
And some history, Zumba started at Crunch on Miami Beach.
Did it?
The founder, Beto,
Well,
he started,
bring him
it was
home,
his
baby.
class. I used to go to that class, so it would be wonderful to reach out to them and see if they're interested.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and he actually still lives in Miami Beach. So he's somebody I'll engage. He's one of the founding fathers, wildly popular in Colombia and things like that. So it'll be great.
That'd be awesome.
If I may, Lisette, if we want to perhaps budget this for 2026, I believe we need budgeted perhaps maybe for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. And what would you suggest is the best course of action to, I guess, put this in the right direction or the next step?
Sure, and as I mentioned, we've had high-level discussions with High Rocks. They mentioned they would need about the same amount of funding that we gave them in 2023, which is about 600,000. With CrossFit, Loud and Live, they mentioned, as close as possible to 800. I defer also to our CFO, but we have our large-scale event fund that's at 606, that's already in the recurring budget that we can start and use that for 2025 and 26. But Jason?
Hey, thank you, Lizette. Let me add on to that. So currently in the 2024 budget, it was a new item that was added, was a community events pool of funds available as events come up. And the commission has approved a number of events throughout the year that didn't have attached funding, as a specific item, and we've utilized that pool to cover those costs. So what we could do, I believe $606,000 is available in that pool. So that would be over the 2 years, 25 and 26, 1.2 million. And just doing quick math, I think it's around 1.4 million would be needed for that. So that would exhaust the pool totally for 25 and 26 and still be short 200,000, which is fine. Just a couple of caveats to that. So if this goes back to commission to become a budget priority through the 25 and 26 budget priority, what we could do is we could allocate $600,000 in the 25 budget dedicated towards that, with the understanding that the 600 for 26 would also be allocated, and we would then have to pony up an additional 200,000 in 26 to cover that. The only caveat I just wanted to add then is for the commission to hopefully be mindful then when there's these events of let's give $25,000 for this thing and $10,000 for this thing, then there would be no pool really available to cover that. So just to give you some of the concepts on the numbers there.
And this essentially being a placeholder, one thing that I like about this is I can see the strong possibility of an ROI on this, right? March is a month where we went from having very little direction in what we wanted to be, and now we're implementing curfews and, essentially telling people, yes, come here, but no, do not come here. And this is going to kind of help reshape and reinvigorate time that might have had somewhat of an economic impact of when we think about how we're handling spring break.
If I can also maybe just to recommend, there's around $400,000 left, a little more than that left in the pool for this year, but there's an outstanding obligation to the national championship, which is also in 2 years, of $400,000. So, speaking to Lisette about this, is that we would just utilize that outstanding requirement for those dollars. There will be a small amount that I would allow to get rolled over to cover that, but perhaps the motion is to go back to commission, favorable recommendation for the administration to engage, in agreement negotiations, to come back to commission for these vendors with a budget of up to $1.4 million, of which 600,000 will be allocated as part of the large scale pot in 25, and another 800,000 in 26. So, but again, just as a reminder, this would mean then that this would be all of the pool being allocated.
But we'd be able to talk at our upcoming budget retreats and workshops which I think the next one is actually focused on operating, not, we've already done capital, so we're doing operating, so we could talk about prioritizing, actually replenishing that if we decide to allocate it in this fashion, correct?
Correct. Dollars could be, if there's additional surplus that want to be allocated towards that, some dollars, maybe the 200,000 that we know that we're going to identify need, or some amount additional could be added to it to leave some amount in the pool. And I think in the realities of the world, it's probably helpful to ensure that there's at least $100,000 or $150,000, because things will come up that, you know, and Lizette can speak to you privately off, you know, about the other pools of money that we have for events and all the very detailed processes that she's put in place to ensure, but there's, you know, very many hungry mouths that, you know, have an interest in running really great events here at the city.
Okay, I appreciate the informative dialogue. Do I have somebody that wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I will second.
And if I can, so that motion would be to return to, again, always for the record, right? Return to commission with a favorable recommendation for the administration to engage with the relevant vendors to bring a fitness festival during March of 2026, and to make it a budget priority during the 25 and 26 budget process.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. We'll show unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to agenda item number 15, discussion regarding costs associated with dog beach access program in the budget process. I feel like I'm doing somebody else's job right now. Am I doing your job, Rick? No, I wasn't sure if you'd like introducing
Oh,
me. I'm
that was
doing
me
your job?
previous.
All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that was item number 15, sorry. Discussion regarding costs associated with the Dog Beach Access Program and the budget process for the 2025 fiscal year, number 15. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So this is actually an exciting item for us because
I'm sorry, if I could, just not for my knowledge, but for everybody else's, us being who?
I
You could introduce
apologize.
yourself.
I
Yep.
apologize. Jose Del Risco, Assistant Director of the Parks and Recreation Department. This particular item is one that, you know, we definitely have an issue. We have dogs on the beach. We witness it, you know, our rangers witness it, our code enforcement officers, et cetera. You know, it's an issue that has to be tackled. And so that's why we're excited that this item came before us. And there's, you know, basically one of two ways, right? One is enforcement, another one is creating an avenue for people to lawfully, you know, have their dogs access beach areas, et cetera. To proffer some history, in 2014, the Parks and Recreation Department initiated a pilot program, and that program required registration, paying $5 if you're a resident, $25 if you weren't a resident, et cetera, to use the beach area on 81st Street. And, you know, for their dogs, and basically Friday through Sundays, you know, roughly a 4-hour period, seasonally adjusted. And that program has since then weaned down in the sense that we didn't have a whole lot of use of the program, so we stopped restricting, you know, or requiring registration. We stopped charging the fee. We do have folks that do follow the rules. We do have folks that use the program, but we have seen, you know, dogs in the beach in other areas, you know, South Beach, Mid Beach, et cetera. You know, we've provided our costs. We think that, you know, as recommended and as proffered, you know, park rangers could monitor. The budget that we've provided is kind of a worst case scenario budget, in the sense that we always try to move our staffing around and remain flexible in, you know, being able to, you know, restation and reposition rangers to avoid overtime costs. But the numbers that we have provided are inclusive, if we had, of ranger coverage dedicated there during the entire period, you know, that's being proffered. Originally, the recommendation was 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. However, we've been working closely with Environment and Sustainability, and they've recommended maybe that we push the hours back 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Just because we want to make sure there's enough time for the county to go out and do the turtle nesting, you know, reconnaissance that they do every morning, et cetera. But, you know, this is an item that we certainly are happy to discuss, and, you know, have any, you know, questions, et cetera.
Commissioner Suarez, why don't I kick it to you for your thoughts first, given this is your item?
Yeah, I think Jose hit it on the head. Right now, people bring their dogs to the beaches anyways. This gives an opportunity or an avenue for a legal place where we can, dedicate our resources for cleanup and sanitation. We have, 7 miles of beaches. It's impossible to think that we can enforce everywhere. But if we educate with with a specific place where people can bring their dogs to the beach and enjoy it during a very set, specific period of time, I think that would be great. I mean, I've got 3 dogs, and I love bringing, when I can bring my dogs to the beach, I either have to go to Hollover or Biscayne Beach, and it doesn't seem feasible for a resident to do that if they want to enjoy the beach with their dog. And this kind of ties in perfectly with our Blue Zone City initiative. It's not just us; it's our pets that we can bring. We can go run on the beach with the dogs. We can play catch. It's a quality of life. It's a small quality of life issue that we're bringing to the residents that's going to make living here so much more desirable.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. We can just engage in back and forth. We don't have to go through the chair on this.
All right. I have a few questions. Number one, what do we do about fleas in the sand? Because that's been one of the concerns. I have nothing against people bringing dogs to the beach, but you get one dog with fleas, the sand gets infected with fleas, and then people are getting bites. That's number one. The second thing is that they're out there having fun, and they just urinate like in the sand. So, but 2 questions. How can we keep the sand clean? That's my only worry. Let's say that we have this specific area. It needs to be sanitized at some point, like at least once a month. I don't know what the protocol is for that. I saw that you're going to test the water quality. Fine, but what are you going to do to make the sand safe?
Yeah, so when it comes to the sand, we can certainly work with the county and try to see what options are available. They're the ones that maintain the beach itself. They do the beach raking, et cetera. As it pertains to feces, et cetera, the rangers would be there. They'd be handing out bags and, ensuring that folks are cleaning up after their pets. We would also engage, obviously, if we came across any feces. But of course, urine is a concern, and fleas could always be a concern as well.
So I'm going to be supportive as long as they find something that they can either spray the sand with that's not toxic, that will get rid of the urine odor and the fleas.
I mean, there is rain. Usually the rain washes the pee away. And as far as fleas, I mean, it's the same issue that you would have at any dog park, unfortunately. But I think in today's age with today's technology, I think 90% of dogs are on flea medication, especially in Miami Beach, where it's almost like non-existent at this point. I mean, so I hear you, and again, this is just a pilot program. So
my only question is if there is something that's not toxic that they can spray the sand with, I think we should. So I would just add that to it if that's okay with you.
Great idea.
Okay.
Commissioner Dominguez.
I'll just make a quick comment, and it's not related to dog fleas, but there is sand lice that exists on the beaches, and there's a season, and my understanding is that the season is happening right now, and the lice comes from the sargassum that builds up on the sand. So not the dogs, so I wouldn't want the people to confuse it with the dogs bringing the lice. It happens because of the seaweed.
I have a couple of questions. In general, I'm supportive of this, but I'm, Amy, you're here, and maybe you can address how we're going to have increased water testing. We have definite issues with water quality around Miami Beach already, and I want to make sure that we're not adding to the problem by trying to do something that people want. I mean, so is there going to be enhanced testing, more frequent, more like in these particular spots? Will we do testing specifically? Is one question. The other question, the other question is we have a lot of independent-minded thinkers in Miami Beach, and even if we have 3 additional dog parks to the big one that we already have up in North Beach, people are still going to have their dogs off leash on the beach wherever they want, as they do now. How are we going to communicate that this is happening and step up our enforcement practices so that you either have your dog on the dog park beach or you don't have your dog on the beach at all? Because, you know, this is being proposed to solve that issue, but if it doesn't solve that issue and, you know, we turn the entire beach into a dog beach effectively, that's a problem. I also love dogs. I have a whole bunch of them. The numbers vary by week, it seems. But, you know, I know people who are terrified of dogs or allergic to dogs, or, you know, dogs are, at the end of the day, even the best trained ones, still animals. And if somebody, you know, somebody sets somebody else off, that is an issue. And we don't want to be sort of sticking our foot in it while we're trying to do something that's good. So how are you guys handling those things?
Sure. Well, good morning, Commissioner and Commissioners. Amy Knowles, Chief Resilience Officer. When the item was first conceived, the Commissioner as well as Attorney's Office did reach out to me personally to find out what the Department of Health would think about this with those same concerns. The areas that are being recommended already are within the FDOH Healthy Beaches program. So 53rd Street, 21st Street, as well as the existing 81st are already within that program. They would not be inclined to add any additional sampling, so we would need to utilize what we have. And I think we would have to monitor it carefully. So when there is, you know, any exceedances, there are alerts that go out. You probably have seen them yourself. So that would be monitored, you know, in that way. But they do not have the ability to, or they don't have authority over this as Department of Health, but they have a lot of recommendations, which were also included in your package.
As to enforcement, so the rangers are certainly a component. They patrol the beach walk. We currently don't patrol the beach. But, you know, combined with the code enforcement officers, combined with the police department, who also has some beach walk details, we can certainly work with them and try to address the issue. It does come up. We do receive complaints, and we all try to work with each other to tackle the issue. And that's why we're excited that we're taking a stab at, you know, an approach to see if it alleviates some of the concerns that we're having now in those areas where it's not permitted right now. And we would also work with communications, because a very important component of this, like any, you know, action we take, is a communication piece, right? So people are aware. And I think that, you know, innately people want to certainly comply with the rules, you know, and now that we're going to have a mid-beach location, a South Beach location, I think it'll certainly provide an avenue for further compliance.
Yep, yeah, just Commissioner Bott, it's not 3 additional. It's 2 additional. I didn't know that North Beach had a dog beach, and so when I found that out, I'm like, oh, well, now I will. So it's going to be adding 2 additional beaches, and the idea is to basically have it, you know, so every part of the beach gets its own little slice of paradise on the beach.
So I'll make comments. Maybe I'm hoping the dog lobby isn't as strong as the cat lobby after this, but we'll see. I don't love the idea, but if this is a community need, I'll be supportive of the concept. But Mr. CFO, just to confirm, when we were going through our latest budget, I saw $150,000 that's allocated for the construction of a new dog park in Mid-Beach. And while it's not on the beach, it's actually on Collins Avenue, right off of the beach, correct?
I believe one of the projects that was recommended for funding was a 35th Street dog park, which I think is adjacent to the beach. And if I could just also, because the dollars weren't mentioned specifically, this initiative, if this goes back to commission with a favorable recommendation, I would assume it include the $140,000 budget, make it a budget priority during the 2025 budget process, because there is a dollar value associated with initiating this program.
So while the concept I'm not in love with, but can be supportive, I think we're kind of, I don't say asking for trouble, but I can just envision the emails that we're going to receive of people walking barefoot down the beach and stepping in, you know what, deal with that when it gets there. But from the budgetary perspective, if we're not adding any type of infrastructure or things like that, help me understand how just saying, okay, from 7 to 9 or 9 to 11, you take your dogs on the beach, how that translates to $140,000.
Sure.
And I hope it's not because, well, now we need in in a 3-block area, people to stop by every 15 minutes. I'm not going to be supportive of if that costs $140,000.
Yeah, so the way most of the cost, I mean, there's minor costs related to infrastructure, meaning we would have the doggy bag dispensers, both at the entrance to the beach and in the actual area as well. But those costs are, relatively minimal. We would have costs associated with the dog bags, the poop bags themselves. Most of the costs are staffing, right? Because the way that we originally had the discussions was having rangers dedicated there, present while it's happening, to monitor the activity, right? To make sure that people are picking up after themselves, and to further, make the program successful. As I mentioned, that is the cost if we had to have a ranger on an overtime detail perform the work.
Sorry, Jose. Mr. City Attorney, is there any legal liability where that would be a requirement having the ranger staff this? Because until we see an issue, maybe we don't go forward with the personnel component, but if we could put in a nominal amount like $10,000, $15,000 for the doggy bags, the infrastructure, and then we go forward as a concept, I'm happy to support that.
The question as to whether you need
There's
to have
no,
a
like,
ranger there to monitor, that's a policy call, that is not a legal question.
I don't know how my colleagues would feel if we move forward in concept, but we're not allocating dedicated personnel in the tune of $140,000. How would you feel?
By the way, the Boucher brothers told me that they'd be more than happy to help on the cleanup efforts and sanitation efforts. So I think we have a vendor who's willing to and do it for free, and even print out bags with Miami Beach logos on it, the poop bags. So I'd be more than happy to maybe bring it when we bring it to the commission, that they can present and say, hey, they're willing to step up as a great asset to the community to help with this pilot program.
Doggy poop bags were never an avenue I envisioned for advertising, but hey, that's what they want to do. I'm fine with that. How would you all feel if we approve this item, but we allocated an amount of $15,000 for the infrastructure and don't go forward until we would discover a need for it with the personnel component?
If I may. Yeah, please. I have a question. The proposed locations, are those locations where the Boucher brothers already have operations, or would that be their volunteering and that would be an expansion?
I believe they're going to be volunteering. I think Mid Beach, they may have an operation there, but I know South Beach, they for sure, the one on 21st Street, they do.
I just want to be careful because we don't want I am happy to accept help from anybody willing to offer, but I also don't want to, if there's not already a Boucher Brothers location at the location of the park, I don't want that to turn into another Boucher Brothers location. I
think during that 2-hour limited time, they're willing to send someone there to make sure that it's being handled properly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
not going to set up shop and.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that's also a community need, right? Like the balance between being able to just throw your towel down with your friends versus being relegated to the back of the bus because there are all kinds of chairs on the beach.
Right.
I would be supportive of your vision of moving it forward with a smaller budget, and then if we need to find funding because something is amiss, when we come back to the commission meeting, we'll know if the Boucher brothers are able to help, and if they're not, then we can reconsider what the funding needs might be.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion that we will move this item forward with, but with a modification that we will reflect the funding, not of a fiscal impact of up to $140,000, but we'll say $10,000, which I still think is very gracious for the infrastructure.
You did start at 15.
Time value of money.
Sorry, I tried.
$10,000. And if this program, we decide we need more resources and more personnel, come back to us and we'll take a look at this. But let's move the concept forward with a lesser financial impact.
If I could, Chair, if I could, hearing everything and trying to work in the motion, if I'm correct, the motion would be to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to add 2 new Dog Beach locations with a $15,000 cost. $10,000 to be a budget priority during the 2025 budget process, and for the administration to discuss an additional public benefit with the Boucher brothers. Is that?
Perfect.
Get everything? Thank you.
Does a colleague want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have a 10:45 time certain for item number 16. Looks like we're pretty close to timing here, so let's hear that. Commissioner Dominguez, would you like to introduce your item?
You want to read the item into the record? I'll just read the item into the record. Number 16 is a referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee for a comprehensive review of the MBPD's LGBTQ outreach initiatives, discussion of the types of social services programs available to the LGBTQ community in the city, including but not limited to STI and/or drug testing centers, and exploration and collaborations between the city, nonprofit organizations, and local establishments to strengthen and promote these crucial services in the city. Item 16.
Thank you. So the purpose of this item is to really ensure that we have an allocated line item so that MBPD can utilize funds from that line item for LGBT uses. Right now, with the current chief and command staff, they are very supportive of LGBTQ initiatives, and we want to ensure that funds for their different items are protected through a separate line item, and Cecile Ori is here to discuss it.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Please welcome.
The item asks for an overview of the PD services, and so we also asked Dr. Rosenfeld and Parks and Recreation for what they do on LGBT initiative. So the memo reflects the information we receive as well as PD's initiatives. Right now, there's two piles of money allocated by the Commission, which is the partnership with Pride Lines and the partnership with SAVE. That's for sure ensuring certain services in the city. In terms of the police, that's a big part of the community policing approach. However, there's no dedicated funding attached to it. We have personnel, we have 2 liaisons doing some of the work, but because there's no budget attached to it, it's very dependent on the leadership's support. It's also dependent on what is left in the budget. If you have something that happened, or spring break could cost more money, or something like the attack on October 7th that deployed a large portion of overtime funding to safeguard the Jewish institution, or anything like that, then you could end up with no funding for LGBT, or not sure, and you can't launch a program unless you know it's going to be funded. So it makes doing those activities pretty challenging, the lack of dedicated line item. And there's been a high demand for actually more from the community, from the advisory committee, from other municipalities with which we collaborate on LGBT initiatives. And so it would really allow us to, number one, safeguard the fact that we would know certain activities are going to happen every year. And number two, to probably do more if we had a dedicated line item for this.
Thank you, Cecile. And on page 168 of our package, it lists the breakdown of what it would be used for, and the line item request is for $54,000.
Excellent. And I think what you've seen from our commission is just broad-based support and love for our LGBT community. We understand the trying times, especially, perhaps in our state that has been cast upon them. That is not how we view things in Miami Beach. We want to do things that are supportive. So it's something I'll support. Let me turn it over to my colleagues, Commissioner Bott.
Thank you. First of all, Jason, if you could add me as a co-sponsor to this, that would be great. I think that not only should we memorialize this and protect the funding, but we should also do it with whatever the appropriate CPI increases per year to make sure that, in 10 years from now, you're not still at 54,000 have to cut a program. So I don't want to inflate things unduly, but also there's inflation, and I think we need to factor that in. So, it's really important, as you said, Commissioner Magazine, that we put our money where our mouth is, especially in the state of Florida, where we're not supposed to say gay, and protect those who may feel that they are the most vulnerable among our community and provide safe spaces and resources. So that's a definite 2 thumbs up for me. I will move it.
Excellent. I will second.
If I can, so the motion will be to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to make it a budget priority during the 2025 budget process for $54,000 to be added to the police department budget related to the LGBTQ initiatives, and that dollar value to be indexed to inflation going forward.
That's right.
Yep. And believe Commissioners Bod and myself asked to be added as co-sponsors.
I'll
Thank you,
reflect that.
Commissioners.
Okay. Going to move past item 14 just because we have an 11 a.m. time certain, and while we're close, I believe the rules are we can't call it any time before 11, even though we certainly have our representatives here. So if you can bear with us for 6 minutes, we'll get you up here and out of here. So let's go to item number 3, discuss action pilot program to utilize block-the-box cameras.
Mr. Chair? It's my item. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I brought this back a few months ago, and the idea here is right now we cannot issue a citation via mail for blocking the box. If there is an officer present, we can issue a citation. And that is unfortunately a function of state law. The idea and intent behind this item is twofold. One idea is to educate people who do block the box. We can find out who they are, and we can send them a written notice saying, hey, you blocked the box, please be a little bit more considerate, or something along those lines. And I believe this legislative session in 2025, and the Florida legislative session in 2025, we're going to have tremendous amount of lobby activity to push for items such as this. And the idea is by the time we get approved funding, permits, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 years anyways. And I'm foreseeing us having a huge success in Tallahassee to actually get citations mailed out through this technology. It's only a matter of time. We just did it with school zones and speeding. And I feel like this is less intrusive in terms of enforcement. So I wanted to check the temperature of my colleagues on this. I think, it comes to mind 41st Street, 17th Street in Alton, North Beach, that there's a consistent issue with people blocking the box, and it really affects traffic. And so this is starting to lay the groundwork for better behavior on the road.
I am supportive. Let me turn it over to our police department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Garcia, Major of Police Tech Services. So based on the recommendation by Commissioner Suarez, we've started to look into this. At this point in time, we've reached out to our current red light camera vendor. They are conducting some testing on a system that would do basically that in Delaware. Has not started yet. The other agency that we reached out to that we found out was doing something similar to this was in Washington State. In Washington State, it's a little different. It's not necessarily blocking the box. Their technology works more about blocking crosswalks. So they think that technology might be able to be adapted because, but right now it's only it's not capturing every vehicle that would be blocking the box intersection. It only captures the last one in the line, which usually is the one that's in the crosswalk, and they're citing for that. So we have not yet found a vendor that does specifically block-the-box technology. Obviously, we're going to keep looking anytime that we can find a solution to a problem like this with technology is much better than solving it with personnel, much more cost efficient. Our concern, Commissioner, with the locations, we have a unique situation where the biggest locations where this problem occurs are on state roads. We do not believe that the Florida Department of Transportation would permit us installing a system to do something that is not legally allowed. We also have a concern regarding using cameras and obtaining information from the driver database for a non-enforcement type of citation. We've looked into this with the city attorney's office previously. We cannot get a definitive opinion from the DHSMV whether it's a permissible use or not. So we have a concern about that we'd have to work out. And as far as what we'd ask for from the Finance Committee, unfortunately, I do not have the ability to ask for anything because I do not know how much this would cost. We have not found a vendor that does this yet. The cost can vary widely depending on whether they require hard infrastructure or some type of wireless and solar installation. So I do not have the ability to ask you for any funding at this point. I'd like to ask if we can. Our recommendation would be to allow us to continue looking into this. We do have some police and law enforcement conferences and expositions that come up at the end of, towards the end of the year where maybe we can find a vendor that does this, and we'll continue to look into it. But at this point, I just don't have anything to ask you for because I don't know how much something like this would cost at this point.
Deputy Chief, what is the status of essentially I don't want to use the wrong word, but the traffic enforcement officers that we will have stationed at some of the problematic intersections? I know that there's a specific moniker name for PIPP.
PSSs.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Public safety specialists. Yesterday that we hosted a graduation in which 7 graduated. We have the remainder starting the academy per se, our in-house academy on Monday. So we should be fully staffed at some point with the 10 that was allocated by the commission. The 7 are now going to enter into what we call the FTO phase. They're going to ride for a short time with an experienced PSS, gain some knowledge of the city, geography, and actually perform the work that they were trained to do. And then eventually they'll be released on their own. But they're going to be out there beginning on Monday, actually performing some of this work at major intersections around the city. And I just want to reiterate what Major Garcia said. We are a proponent for this, and we support what Commissioner Suarez is trying to do here. The ability to free up law enforcement and then to educate the public through technology such as this with enforcement action is the way to go. We just have that hurdle with FDOT and hopefully through the state and something passing along these lines that allows cities across the state to perform this type of function is a long-term goal, and I hope they come forth with it because it'll help us tremendously.
Excellent. Great to hear about the PSS. If I could ask one follow-up, perhaps before Monday, if you'd be able to issue a very, very quick and brief letter to the commission, perhaps identifying the times and places where these 7 officers will be on Monday. I'd love to come out and show my personal support and see how this is working live and in person.
And just as a follow-up to that, sir, they're going to move around to congested areas around the city, so it'll fluctuate, but we can get you some information.
I'd like to make one additional comment that I think at the point in time where this is legislatively approved, I think very quickly you'll find people moving into the market, just the same way that we saw with the red light, with the speeding cameras in school zones. The minute that this is approved legislatively through the state, I think you'll find everybody will have a solution that they're going to come and try to sell us immediately. So we're kind of a little putting the cart before the horse, but hopefully, once it happens, or once there's some momentum for that to get approved, I think you're going to see a lot of people move in, and there'll be solutions available.
Commissioner Suarez, what direction we want to take here? Do you want to perhaps close this out? But it sounds like our police staff will still be on the lookout and proactively looking for different vendors and different solutions, but given that they don't have any ask right now, or do you want to keep this kind of open and revisit in 6 months?
Correct. So I'm not a member on this committee, so I unfortunately cannot make any motions, but if I were, yes, I would like to, I don't mind closing out or waiting back 6 months for additional information. And I would also, would like to see that this become a legislative priority for the 2025 Florida State session.
Yeah, I'm certainly supportive of that. I know we're big boys and girls here, so just because we close this out, I'm confident that you'll keep working on it in the background.
We're not going to stop looking.
Yep.
You need a motion?
If I can help summarize it. Sounds
I'll move what he said. You want to bring it back in like a few months to see what they found out, like 3 months? How long do you need?
Yeah, 6, but I think we're going to close
Bring
it
it
out.
back in 6
Okay,
months.
so, and we'll let I think there's a couple of items to there. The motion could be to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to make the, and I'll work with the city attorney maybe on the language a little bit, is the block-to-box related law, state law adjustments to become a legislative priority for the commission. 2, for an LTC to be issued on the PSS deployment. And then we would close, and then obviously the police department in the future is if that laws ever did change, would then work with, I think, the commissioner to then go down the proper process. Is that
I'm personally
summarize
good
it well?
with all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Bott, you want to make a motion?
I'll make that.
I'll second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. I feel like we're lacking our all in favor count here today. I feel like we're lacking the all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. I'll just take
All
that
in
view
favor?
today. If I can, I'll take that roll over. Yeah,
Actually, before we close this item out, can you just explain what releasing the PSSs is? Is it like releasing the Kraken? Is it really letting the dogs out? I mean,
Essentially, Madam Commissioner, they have to achieve a level of proficiency in what they've been previously trained to do. They have to demonstrate that actively out on the roadway. I'll give you an example. There's a difference between learning how to move cars in a very small, confined intersection versus picking them at 41st Street in Alton, as an example, which is a major intersection with lots of turn lanes and through lanes and things of that nature. That's just one example. And then there's report writing and things of that nature.
thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So we're going to go ahead and hear our time certain of 11 a.m. item number 14. And then I believe I see HR. Yes. After that, we're going to hear item number 4.
Okay. Number 14, discuss the possibility of the city assuming control and managing the Sunset Harbor lift station. Number 14.
Gentlemen, turn it over to you. Or Mr. CFO, you want to introduce this? Or have you?
I think we'll have Joe Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Again, Joe Gomez, Public Works Director. This is a request from the Sunset Harbor buildings, the North Tower, Sunset Harbor South Tower, the townhomes in Sunset Harbor and the Yacht Club, collectively the properties, making a request for the city to take over the private lift station that currently serves these 4 buildings. In the memo, we detailed for you our analysis of this. I should point out that this is not a unique situation to this location. We have over 30 private lift stations throughout the city. For example, Mount Sinai has several. The Addition Hotel has 2. We have other locations. The Coast Guard station has several. So this is not a unique situation. However, after careful analysis by our team, if we were to to take over a station like this, we've estimated that the cost to upgrade the station, based on our city standards, with new equipment, is somewhere in the range of $1 million to $1.5 million. In addition to that, it would have an annual operating cost of about $60,000. As such, we're not recommending that this be approved. It also implies that we would have to have legal instruments for us to be able to, because the location of the pump station is not going to change. So in order for us to be able to maintain this facility, we would have to have irrevocable license permits to be able to enter private property in order for us to do that. So all of these private lift stations are all within private property. And as an example, the best example is in the case of a private lift station, what it does is it provides a point of collection for those particular building or buildings to be able then to pump into the public right-of-way, to the public system.
Excellent, thank you for that. And maybe if we could turn it over to Sunset Harbor, if you could introduce yourself and then make the reason for where this ask is originating from.
Yes, so thank you, committee members, commissioners, chair. My name is Mark Halpern with Halpern and Rodriguez. We represent a variety of the communities out there. It's important, first of all, I want to point out some inaccuracies that you just heard. Number one, we're about 641 units representing over 2,000 residents in the Sunset Harbor area. The word used was, this is not unique. This is incredibly unique. We are the only location in the city faced with essentially performing as a public utility. This predates everybody's time here, however this happened. But I want you to understand, we operate a lift station that deals with the sewage of 4 different communities. Not ours, so the actual lift station is located at Sunset Harbor South. Those pipes run through our neighbor's property. They run through the city's property. We are essentially handling the sewage for 3 private communities, not including our own. So when you hear that this is not unique because Mount Sinai does it, or the Coast Guard station, or some hotel, they are doing it for themselves. Imagine if you were maintaining your neighbor's sewage needs, pumping their sewage for them. It's very bizarre, and I've been on this issue loosely for 10 to 15 years. We worked with Public Works back when they tore up Purdy, and the sewage line needed to be widened because of the increased density down there. We talked about it then and all of the challenges that we are faced with by essentially running a public utility. This was a setup that should have never occurred. We've searched the city records to find how the developer of this community got away with this. It doesn't exist. Nothing exists. We don't have agreements between ourselves and our neighboring properties. We've been really good residents dealing with this for 25 years, okay? And I do have a few things that I just want to go through. Again, this is critical waste infrastructure that we've been dealing with, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 25 years. You heard that to bring this lift station up to code, it was going to cost, this is really upsetting because we've tried to make this very clear. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of our own money.
I don't mean to interrupt, but when you say we,
Yes.
who is running this now? Like,
Strangely enough, when I say we, I mean Sunset Harbor South. We get contributions.
specific buildings?
Yeah, buildings. So,
Okay, so 1,800, 1,900.
yeah. So as you all, and
So
in
your
townhomes-
HOA is going into operating this?
Yeah, so really the operating is being done by one of us because it's on our properties, meaning Sunset Harbor South. Let me stop using pronouns, you're right. So Sunset Harbor South has been operating this for 25 years. We have really just without proper documentation and so forth, we bill the neighboring communities that we are servicing
from townhomes at Sunset Harbor North, obviously we are south, and we also service the marina. The bigger problem is not even the money for us. When the city comes out and they have to do work on the sewer system, we get shut down. You know how most of the time we find out about that? Because in terms of point of connection, the last community, which is Townhomes of Sunset Harbor, starts getting backflow in all of their toilets and feces and all of that stuff. So not only is this an operating nightmare for us, there is a serious health and safety concern, and we anticipate at some point environmental concerns. We're on the water. There's going to be raw sewage that's going to, let me move past that. We've been down, our pump station has been down, and we've been working on a bypass since 2017. 2017, Hurricane Irma destroyed the control panel. We have, since 2017, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting this thing up. The code continues to change on us. Fortunately, I can tell you all here today that we anticipate getting an operative control panel mid-July. So this idea that there's this upfront $1 million to $1.5 million cost is untrue. We propose to turn this over to the city in tip-top shape.
But if we just turn over the operations, is that going to dramatically affect some of the issues that you've just described?
Absolutely, absolutely, because we have a coordination nightmare. We have a coordination nightmare. The city does everything in that area except maintain this station. So we get no notice, we don't know, and by the way, we're a condo association. We don't have the infrastructure the city does to deal with this. And if they're gonna work on, some crucial
we fight about putting out chairs at our pool. I can imagine if we if we had this responsibility.
Yeah, this is and by the way, I have with me, because I think it's actually better to hear from the people that are really in the trenches here. And by the way, I'm happy to answer all questions as much time as you all will give us. We're very thankful to be here. But I have with me Xiomara Reina, who is the manager of Sunset Harbor South. She's the one that really deals with this on a day-to-day basis, the nightmare that it is. She can go over some of the real practical issues. I also have, and some people that I'm sure you've seen before, Sarah De Los Reyes. She's a resident, an activist here on my beach that wants to talk a little bit about some of the financial issues. And I have Marilyn Freundlich here, who did incredible legwork, because we got a list. We know where all the private lift stations are. We've checked them all out. None of them are similarly situated, not one. And so I know, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, number one. Obviously, those buildings are tremendously dense, and have we looked through our public records to see when they got the building permit for this, if there was anything included? You're saying there's 0 records on this?
0. And we've asked the city to look.
the
We've
city
done
has
this
looked?
multiple, something weird happened.
I would
many
say
years
that
ago.
between now and the next meeting, the first thing that we need to do is look very carefully through everything, because maybe the only reason that you got permission to build in the first place was if you agreed to this station. Wait, I'm not saying that, you do right now.
But if I just
But
may,
the first thing, the
we
first
didn't
step
agree.
that, as a city, because this is a tremendous expense and we don't know, what I would ask is between now and the next meeting, let's have our city attorney's office comb through our public records and have us do a very thorough search to look not just at the building permit, but look at the notes from the land use committee, and from the planning board to see what the conversation was when you got the building permit. Because how many units total is it? It's probably
641.
640. So, at that time, they probably said, okay, we're going to let you build this, but you have to agree to maintain that station. So we need to see what it was, what the covenant is, what the agreement is, before we can move forward.
Yeah.
Now, if money is not an issue, and maintenance is, so basically it's out of compliance, and it's going to take $1 million to $1.5 million to bring it up to compliance, or
No,
it's in compliance?
it's
right now?
inaccurate. We've done all the work.
So first and foremost, before we do anything, we don't really have any information except for that you guys haven't found any information. My motion on this would be, between now and our July meeting, let's comb the public records and find out what the agreement was, so that we can at least work from there. And once we have the information that we need, we can possibly strike some sort of a compromise. Okay, if it is
And,
something
yeah,
egregious.
and I would just
That,
say.
that would be my opinion, because we're really, right now, we're just, we don't know. So let's find out what it was, what everybody agreed to. I don't know if it's not in your condo docs, and it probably isn't. I'm sure that this was discussed at the planning board. So what we need is to find out from you guys, and I think you guys should contact the city attorney's office and find out what the agreement was at that planning board meeting, when the planning board meeting was held by the developer, and then moving forward, let's have a conversation based on what transpired back then. That would be my motion. I don't know if anybody would support that.
I think I'm getting there. I'd just like to find out more about this, not an area. Joe, the gentleman was pretty compelling. Tell me where he's wrong.
Let me start. When they say it's being brought up to code, I agree that they're bringing up the electrical panel. They've been working with the building department and all that. What I said was bringing it up to standards. We did a hydraulic analysis because they had approached us when I first started with the city, almost 3 years ago. And they had approached us about the issues that we're having. We commissioned a hydraulic analysis, and the hydraulic analysis showed that the issue is the pump station itself. The pumps are undersized for the amount of volume, that the capacity of those buildings. We provided that hydraulic analysis to them. So to say that if they're bringing it up to standards, we haven't seen proof that the pumps have been changed, because it's definitely undersized. So that is a problem. The pump station, the lift station, the private lift station connects to a 6-inch force main owned and operated by the city that connects to our line on Dade Boulevard. So when that lift station collects everything, it feeds through a force main that's along Purdy Avenue and connects to Dade Boulevard. But I just want to be clear, whatever Mr. Halperin is saying, that we did do a hydraulic analysis, and the hydraulic analysis showed that the pump station, the lift station, was deficient for the volume, the capacity of those buildings.
And I appreciate it, and I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Roses and Gonzalez, but how I'm looking at this is, this sounds like complicated stuff, right? Really complicated stuff. Are we essentially setting ourselves up for further failure as a city by relying on a condo building to perform this critical infrastructure undertaking? Because even if we wouldn't say, I'm sorry, this was in the development agreement, you have to put up or shut up, I'm sorry. But if we're sitting here saying, well, you need to do all this, it doesn't sound as if, and this is no disrespect, but they don't have the expertise. A condo building wouldn't. It has nothing to do with them. So we can't just sit here and say, we as a city, this is your responsibility, because what we ultimately care about is this gets done right, because it doesn't just affect their building. This affects the entire neighborhood and the entire city. So are we almost having a dereliction of duty by allowing them to undertake this?
Private lift stations are typically provided by large developments when the distance to be able to connect by gravity to a city facility becomes so deep that at that point it's impractical. So what happens in those cases is that the lift station, the private lift station is provided to be able to boost and then connect to a system. So again, a private lift station is a choice, because the cost to do the upgrades that a developer would have to incur to provide that connection to the public right-of-way may be so high that they opt to reduce the cost by providing a private lift station with a connection that forces it into the system. That's a choice that developers make. And again, regardless of, well, this is the only 4 buildings that are connected with a private lift station, there are other examples in the city. I have a total of 30 private lift stations throughout the city in different locations that chose to do that as part of the development agreement. So again, it's a choice. I'm not faulting it in how that agreement was arrived at 20-some years ago. I have no knowledge of that. All I can say is that at current, based on the analysis we did, that lift station is undersized for the amount of for the capacity that it needs.
If I may?
Give me 1 second. Let's keep it up here on the commission for a moment.
I'm not opposed to doing something. And it really bothers me when a developer comes along, okay, and gets a permission and then puts us in this precarious situation and builds something that, you know, we shouldn't have, and then people buy into it and then they're stuck with the problem. I see this in so many different condominiums. And I'm not amenable to striking some sort of compromise, possibly a cost split or something, you know, and some help from the city. But before we do anything, and I would suggest this again, let's find out what happened so that we know, and then we're in a better position to, you know, to really consider the fiduciary responsibility and what happened with this entire, you know, legal agreement back then, because they made a commitment, obviously, to take this on, or the developer cut costs and chose not to build the kind of station that he did, which is horrible. I hate that. Okay, so I'm not opposed to it, but I don't feel comfortable taking any action today because we have no information. So if it's okay with you, in the interest of time, and Sarah and Marilyn, if you'd like to say something, you can. My motion, and I don't know if somebody would like to second it, would be to get the information and then come back next month and figure out some sort of solution when we have data, when we understand what it is.
Let's keep the motion on the table, and we'll have a little more discussion.
So I'm actually inclined to support that. I wonder if, I don't know how that development was built, but I wonder if the lift station was built for, let's say, the first two towers or the first tower or whatever, and then the other things, the other parcels of that project came online after the fact. And so that lift station might have been sufficient for the original building, but not for the entirety of the project. But we can't figure that out until we know what the commitments were. My concern, I have two concerns. One is that I don't want this to set precedent for other, and I understand your situation is unique because of the multitude that gets served, but I don't want this to set precedent for other private enterprises to try to, you know, push the responsibility off for others onto the city. But I'm going to hold that at bay. The third thing that's on my mind is, Mr. Halpern, you said that the condo association isn't notified of work by the city, so you find out about it because residents have unfortunate episodes. I would ask the city, I don't know if there's a particular incident where something just didn't get properly communicated, or there was one really bad incident, or it's tied into, you know, general infrastructure overwhelm, like when we had the rains. But if you guys can have a chat, you know, offline and try to figure out why there's no communication, because that is something we can and must fix no matter what. And can happen starting today. So
yeah. I couldn't agree with, honestly, all the things that have been said. I think two things are important right now. One, I want to just leave a couple minutes real quick for Xiomara Reyna, the person that's boots on the ground, to talk to you all. But I just want to say, as to the precedential sort of effect, I challenge the city. I challenge them right now to please find me another community or private lift station of the 30, they've done some homework, that service parcels other than their own. When you start to do that, you have your city attorney, when they start to do that, you become a public utility by definition.
Could we request that from the city? I think I think we're all inclined to kind of support what Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez was saying. So if we can include that as some of the analysis that we get back.
And if we can indulge you for a second longer, I'd love for you all to meet Xiomara and just to hear a little bit about one of your concerns, which was this a one-time thing, or does it happen often, and how do we live day to day? So Xiomara.
If you don't mind, this is my item. Yeah. You know, I personally visited a lift station, and it's crazy that this community, or this one particular HOA services 3 other HOAs. And this was brought to my attention. This was concerning for me because it is next to the water. And whenever there is a backup it goes into the bay. Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, you mentioned that the developer kind of backs up. By the way, this developer has passed away. And I've been asking the city attorney's office to find this document for the last month. Nothing has been produced. But it is smart to go to the planning board and look at the minutes for this particular property. I don't think they've done that, which is a great idea. But, you know, from all the points raised here, other than, you know, sewage backing up into people's places, it does seem out of the ordinary that a condo is servicing 3 other condos. And I just don't believe that they're equipped to do that. I think that really should be a city-owned responsibility. I've had private conversations with the HOA on saying, look, you know, and I totally get the argument that if there was a deal struck with the developer at the time, you know, that's the deal. But meet us halfway. If this is going to cost $1 million, maybe there's going to have to be a special assessment for half of that in the city. And so I think, and by the way, they're more than willing to work with us. But I think Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez, you're absolutely right. Let's get the facts of exactly what we want. I'm totally okay with that, and I'm sure they are, because right now we're not working with all the data, and so I'm hoping that the city attorney's office can produce that.
And Sarah, if I could call you the podium for 1 second, you know, Sunset Harbor, I think this has become one of the most exciting areas in our entire city. Some of that is predicated on new projects that have come over the past few years. There's some projects where we've essentially said, okay, you want to do this, we need some sort of public benefit, or there's fees paid into a transportation impact fee or things like that. Perhaps what we could look at is, you know, going forward over the next couple of years, some of these new private developments, we could say, well, this is our priority now, when instead of paying a neighborhood impact establishment fee that goes to X or transportation, we need this to go to our sanitation, you know, to help alleviate some of these costs.
And you know, it's crazy, when they were developing the Palau and these other buildings, had we had this information, we would have been able to include them and somehow being responsible for
But
this.
they're direct to connect.
But we didn't, and we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm along the same lines of Commissioner Suarez. I'm willing to possibly do some sort of compromise in terms of responsibility, but let's come back next month and get the notes from the planning board and see what your developer agreed to.
Please listen to her because she is the expert on this.
I think those are all wise comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please, if
Hello,
you could introduce
I'm Xiomara Reina. I'm the sole person that operates for the 671 units, which include over 5,000 bathrooms, aside from running a 26-story building, going through an elevator modernization, a facade project, a BDA system installation, a fire alarm modernization.
You're the building manager at 18.
I am 100% liable.
Yes.
When DERM shows up, it's me. I had an instance where I came in the morning on a Friday and I had coffee yet, and there was Public Works to tell me that the Venetian main had broke down. I had to immediately drop everything I was doing, make sure I had 6 pump-out trucks to make sure that we were running at least through the weekend, because the first place that goes down is the townhomes. We literally have feces and other hazardous waste in the first floor of their building. Their residences are on the first floor. The second place is the North Tower. They start going through the landscaping. And then the third is us, and we actually come out through our lobby. So I have to prevent all of this from happening. I've had other instances where the Coast Guards got shut down. I was not noticed. Next thing I know, I have literally feces in the street. So I had to call, I got shut down, I got 14 fines from DERM. So based on all of that, also I have upgraded the control panel, which will be done at the end of July, only $40,000, not millions. I have hired civil engineers, structural engineers, electric engineers, electricians, plumbers, and I'm having all of the system, half a mile of pipes being repaired starting this month. I'm fixing connections, cleanouts, and pipes. We're gonna have a 100% rehabilitated system before July 27th, which is my deadline. And it's not costing me $500,000 or millions, it's costing me $200,000 with the engineers included to have a 100% solid system by mid-July. meaning
And then
that
how does that billing process
Want
work?
to come work for our public works?
She could. No,
We're gonna give you a job.
by the way, you joke, but by the way, our biggest nightmare is losing Xiomara because there's no other manager in the city that could do what she does in this regard.
And then do you go out and then actually build the other buildings? So
Yeah,
there's
so
some
then
sort
at the,
of joint agreement
so
in
at the end of
place?
the year, I collect all of the fees, and then I collect all of the invoices, the backup, and I send it to the other four associations and give them the hard
So
time.
where would those, if the city takes over, where would those fees go? If these
Well-
buildings are already paying?
Well, these fees would never come up again. This is a 25-year-old system that I'm gonna get to you
So perhaps
practically
that's
new.
some sort of part of the compromise, that those fees actually come into us, they remain, the city just takes over, professionalizes the operations.
And the maintenance, the maintenance that we actually pay monthly, annually, regular, is only $1,500.
If I can, Chair, I believe the request was to return to FERC after researching the development orders and other related documentation related to the Sunset Harbor lift station, correct?
Yeah, I think we're all comfortable with that, the community is in agreement?
That would be great.
Excellent.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much for making time for us.
No, thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
As part of that motion, and I don't know if this is possible, Rick, could you see, with planning, if there's something that we could do moving forward to put some sort of overlay in Sunset Harbor, so any new developments will have to contribute into the fund, like Commissioner Magazine said, so that we can, begin to help cover the costs if anything else additional is developed in the area. So there's ways that we can, help cover the cost.
Wait, any new developments to contribute to a fund?
Any new developments in that Sunset Harbor area that could potentially, that they somehow pay into a fund so that we maintain this. I don't know. If people want to continue to build in that area, maybe they pay into a fund to
Well,
help
I mean,
them.
as I understood earlier, if you build a certain way, you do not need a lift station. So if the developer is going to use this lift station, I suppose, I'm not sure.
But
I
it
follow.
doesn't matter. We can still charge them an impact fee that will help cover our cost in the case that we do reach a compromise moving forward. So we can
Okay.
say, listen, in your neighborhood, in the Sunset Harbor, if you want to put any more density, or if you want to build, if you want more water and sewer, you have to pay into, a fund. There's ways to cover it. Okay?
If I can, thank you, Rick. So this isn't technically related to this item, it's something that you would work with the commissioner as a commission item?
Yes, this would be
Yeah,
a
okay.
separate.
I would like to
Thank
punt
you.
this to Commissioner Suarez, because this is his baby. Would you like to do that item?
See some themes on
Sunset.
Commissioner Suarez's items today.
They're talking about working with the city attorney's office to create some sort of overlay to pay into some sort of fund to potentially, if anybody wants to develop in that area, to cover the cost of whatever we're going to be putting in moving forward. And if you don't want to work on that, it's fine.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Let's get the facts first.
Okay, all right, okay.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Freundlich. I'm with the Townhomes at Sunset Harbor. The lowest point of all these endeavor here. And when something happens, the first garage that gets the poop is us, okay? And we had to install special drains that only allow water or whatever to go down and not up, to the tune of thousands of dollars in our building to help, not prevent, but to help with this. But that's not what I wanted to say. What I want, if you indulge me for a couple of minutes, this developer, what he did was incredible. So we have no idea of exactly what deals he made with the city. I'll give you the best example. We have a guardhouse in our townhomes, and we needed to change the doors and the windows because they were old and, not compliant with hurricane. So we go down to the city with our plans to ask for a permit to change the windows and the doors. And the city tells me, but you don't have a guardhouse. And I said, what do you mean we don't have a guardhouse? No, that was never permitted. That was never on the plans. So we had to permit a guardhouse in order to change the doors and the windows. And it doesn't stop. That shows you what I'm talking about. It doesn't stop there. We're doing a huge, massive renovation in our property now. So we wanted to convert the back patios, we wanted to raise them. So we go with all the plans, all asking for a permit. And again, Michael Belush tells me, Marilyn, you don't have patios. In your plans, what you have back there are gardens. I said, we've had patios from day one. He says, well, you have to permit the patios because you don't have patios. So this guy built things without permits, obviously. Okay, he built things without permit. And like Commissioner Bad was saying, maybe he did that lift station in the South Tower because it was the first thing he built. Then he built the North Tower, and he was going to be the third tower where we are, the townhomes. But the city was sued by the islands because the tower will cast a shadow on them. So there was a big lawsuit which the city lost. And they couldn't build a tower there, and then they decided to build the townhomes, which couldn't be higher than X, so that the mansions on the other side wouldn't get a shadow. So everything is very not above board when it comes to Mr. Betzo, may he rest in peace.
We might. What was the developer's name, Marilyn?
Betzo. Betzo? Michael was the son. What was the old man's name?
Besso, B-E-S-S-O?
No, B-E-D-Z-O-W. Yeah.
Betzo, okay.
Yeah. It was called Pacific. Pacific. They were from Canada.
No, we're sympathetic.
And
we'll
all
hear this
we're
next one.
asking, I mean, this lift station is going to be operational 100%. If you do get it, it's like brand new. You have no problem with the lift station. And we are willing to pay something for you guys, the city. But Xiomara, she's not an engineer. She's not a public work person. She's the most amazing manager that anyone could dream of having. Okay?
What a job.
Okay, all right. Let's keep on track. No, thank you for your involvement with the community, and look forward to continuing the discussion.
My last thought was that if push comes to shove, maybe the city would work with us to make like a special taxing district.
Well, that's
I mean, I think that's something like we're proposing. Maybe not that, but along this new development, they pay some sort of impact fee.
Thank you for your ears, guys. I
Thank you,
really,
Marilyn.
really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Let's, we're going to hear item number 4. Do we have HR here? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
I'll read the
You're
item
already
in.
ahead of us.
Number 4, referral to discuss a proposed resolution of the mayor and the city commission of the city of Miami Beach, Florida, establishing as policy of the city of Miami Beach that medical marijuana is medicine and is not an illicit recreational drug, that employees of the city who are prescribed medical marijuana by a properly licensed medical professional in compliance with all requirements set forth in Florida law shall be permitted to use this properly prescribed medication during non-working hours and sufficiently in advance of any scheduled work shift in order to ensure that the employee is not impaired by the use of the medical marijuana while on the job, and directing this administration to draft and proclamate written directives effectuating this city policy. Number 4.
Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, please kick it off.
So, we're a nonpartisan body, but I would like to think of us also as a progressive body. And in the past, we've, done some great things for employees. Like, I believe in 2016, I created this paid parental leave, which really, had a great, wonderful, direct impact on our employees and morale. And because we're so progressive as a body, I had an employee come to me who had cancer, and he had a prescription. The Florida state law says that if you have an ailment and you have a prescription, then you are entitled to medical marijuana because it is medicine. So what I would like for us to do, and I think this would be the progressive thing, is that if you have a documented illness and diagnosis and you need medical marijuana in the city of Miami Beach, we're going to follow the Florida state law and allow for it. I do think that technically, if one of our employees were to sue us under state law, they would probably have the right to medicine. So I think that as long as, if it's law and we allow for this, and by the way, in the city of Miami Beach, everybody has performance reviews. You are showing up to work. If you're somehow not complying, if you can't do your job, obviously that's not going to affect, there would be consequences. This is if you have an illness and you have a prescription and you need the medicine, we're going to allow you to do that. And I think that that is the benign, humane, compassionate course of action for us to take as a progressive city. How do you guys feel about that?
I'd actually like to hear from Marla, because I've questions. My instinct, my wish is to be able to do this. My understanding, and I'll ask you for more detail on this, is that it would affect the rates we're able to offer all of our employees, because it changes our insurance. And the other thing is, I think that it is not unreasonable to suggest that if this were something that were adopted, there would be certain categories of jobs that would be exempted from this. So if you're an emergency responder, one of our first responders, then,
THC for you guys.
Then maybe just see the police van with the Cheech and Chong smoke coming out, yeah, exactly. It's a whole new look for us. No, but if you have been historically in the lifeguard tower for 30 years of your career, but now you're dealing with a health consideration, obviously we're not trying to force you out of your job, but your job duty gets changed. So instead of being a first line of defense, you're training people, or you're, whatever. So now that I've asked you what I need more information on, could you provide some, please?
Good morning. Chairman Magazine, City Commissioners. My name is Marla Alpizar. I'm the Director of the City of Miami Beach Human Resources Department. If you don't mind, I'll just read from a prepared statement and then directly try to answer your questions. Medical marijuana is legal in Florida. State law does not prohibit employers from establishing a drug-free workplace, which is a designation under federal and state laws for insurance and workers' comp purposes as well as other purposes, or from having rules such as prohibiting the use of Schedule I drugs, which marijuana is currently a Schedule I drug under federal law, or from being impaired at work from the use of any drug, alcohol, or any substance. So while medical marijuana is legal in Florida, the Florida law is structured to allow workplaces to still maintain these types of rules. The administration has provided in our memo to this committee a memo that outlines issues surrounding the use of medical marijuana and how it intersects, sometimes in conflicting and confusing ways, with multiple federal laws, state law, I should have said federal laws, including the ADA, workers' compensation issues, liability issues, and then also our city bargaining agreements, all of which prohibit the use of marijuana. I can tell you that HR, the city administration, the city attorney's office, we all take care currently to interact with our employees on these matters in a sensitive, careful, and legal way. There are different situations we see with different employees where each particular case may interact with this issue. Sometimes we have an employee that has a substance abuse problem and they're seeking help. That triggers our response and reaction in a compassionate way with a certain set of actions. Some employees may be impaired at work and have an accident. That triggers different responses. Some employees may have a medical condition, and what they're asking for us is like what Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez is bringing up. They're asking us for an accommodation, which we might do something like what Commissioner Bott just mentioned. How can we work with you to adjust your job responsibilities to give you this reasonable accommodation? And then finally, you might have a new employee candidate that tests positive, and we don't necessarily automatically reject. We would sit with them and have an interactive conversation and say, in this particular case, is there an alternative that you can do to be employed here? Is there a different job that is not safety sensitive? So depending on that situation. Each of these is completely different, requiring HR not to just take action, but to consult with our attorneys, because these are complex legal matters, and our departments to determine what can be done reasonably and not reasonably to navigate these legal matters, be helpful to our employees, maintain our operations and our safety, and to comply with all applicable laws, contracts, and procedures. Please note that if we adopt this referral, this resolution, we would need a very deliberate and careful change of many administrative procedures and practices, including our drug testing practices, our discipline practices, and we would have to negotiate with our unions changes to each collective bargaining agreement. So this is unfortunately not a simple situation. I do want you to understand that we already approach these matters very carefully with lots of thought and compassion.
Questions? Does this all get easier once it's no longer a federally Schedule I drug?
So I'm going to say yes, and it depends.
Okay.
For example, federal transportation law is probably among the strict, and I'm not an attorney, so please, attorney, jump in if I'm getting off here, but Department of Transportation rules regarding licensing of CDL drivers, many of which our jobs require CDL driving, they're much stricter than, and those things have to do with licensing of operators who do certain, airline pilots, Department of Transportation CDL driving. Other types of Department of Transportation rules are the strictest. And so probably, even if it became a Schedule III drug, it's hard to know what the Department of Transportation would do as far as their rules regarding the licensing of federal transportation licenses. So yes and maybe.
Do we know where it is in the process of being declassified federally?
So I actually think that's a great question, and there's 3 recent updates. In April, the Department of Justice recommended to commence a rulemaking process at the federal level. It's going to take many months to ease federal restrictions on rules surrounding medical marijuana, not recreational. This rulemaking process is not expected to end federal criminalization of the drug, but it may include changing the schedule classification. That's one update. Another update is on May 1st of 2024, a bill was introduced in the U.S. Senate to legalize marijuana and remove it from Schedule I on the controlled substance list. As of now, and that was at the time of the writing of the memo to FERC, no Republicans had signed on to co-sponsor the bill in the U.S. House of Representatives, and that was in May. And then here in Florida, voters will be deciding on a referendum for a constitutional amendment on the November 5th ballot to possibly legalize recreational marijuana. So there are changes coming in the federal and in the state level that we're monitoring and paying attention to.
I have one more question, if I might, and then I'll turn it over to you. Is it possible, my understanding, and Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is this is currently, well, this initiative is predicated on one individual's needs currently that we know about. I mean, who knows what hasn't been reported, but is there a way to accommodate one person as standalone, not a policy change?
That's not my item. If you wanted to accommodate, my item is
No,
to,
I understand that,
yeah.
but I want to understand if it's even
Well,
possible.
I mean, we started there, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought about our practices. I thought about overall morale in the city of Miami Beach. I think this is an incredibly stressful place to work. Do you know that we like terrorize departments with random drug sweeps at any given time? And please don't take this personally. You know, we also have this like looming inspector general who used to be the head of the, you know, criminal division. And where is he? Where is it? Oh, there you are. There you are. Not that you're terrorizing people, but you frighten people. You do. You do. Your presence does. And, you know, we also have, you know, this culture where everybody is so afraid that they're going to be accused of something at any time. And I would like to stop some of these practices. And I'll tell you why. Because happy employees are productive employees. Okay, and our culture right now is not a happy, I'm telling you, it is not a happy culture. It is a fear-based culture, and people love to work in the city of Miami Beach, but some of these practices need to shift and change. And we need to sometimes push back, you know? And I'm not saying you are wonderful. Look, HR people this is your job and this is what you have to do. But I have a different perspective, you know, as a PhD in communications and somebody who actually, you know, looks at cultures and looks at practices and how they affect certain groups of people. From my perspective and observances over the past 10 years, I think we could do better. And I think we need to be the leaders in pushing back a little bit on this. And I think that whether, you know, I won't be offended if you guys, you know, move it forward with an unfavorable recommendation, but I do think if we exempt anybody who has to operate machinery or anybody who is involved in emergency management services, what is it? What did you, first responders, I guess? First responders, anybody operating heavy equipment, it would not apply to them. But I think that anyone else who is sick and the individual involved has cancer. And we started out with a meeting. And by the way, had I gotten permission at that meeting to somehow exempt that individual, you know, I probably wouldn't have pushed forward with it, but maybe I would have anyway, because I do dislike some of our practices. We even like, when we test, like, I think if you have like a drink the night before, we test for alcohol too when we do these tests. I think that we go a little too far. And I would like us to set relax some of these policies so that our workers don't feel afraid. Because let's say that it's your birthday the night before and you had a few drinks and then you get one of these random drug sweeps for alcohol in the morning and you just had a few drinks, like so you had a couple of Cosmos the night before, you could test. I think it's terrible practice because our people really are living in fear. So apart from the fact that I would like to remove all of those testing requirements, which might be another thing coming, and maybe that's part of this drug-free workplace designation, my motion would be to move this forward and hear what the body has to say, find out what the financial implications are for us. And I do think that if we rely, for anybody who has a prescription and is ill, I don't think that this is bad policy. I guarantee you it's going to go a long way in making happier employees. By the way, do you know the increase in depression and anxiety? And it's terrible. The cost of living is escalating. It is hard in South Florida. And so many people are addicted to legal drugs, like OxyContin, horrible things, like Xanax, drugs that really, really wreak havoc and have, a terrible, terrible side effects. So I would just ask that you guys allow me to move it and have this discussion. Let's find out what the financial implications are. And I guarantee you that this will be a positive shift in the employee base in the city of Miami Beach.
Marla, can I ask another question? Do you know off the top of your head, or not off the top of your head, but do you have the information available about what the implication would be for our health insurance costs?
Okay, so the cost that you're referring to is outlined in the memo, and basically, by us being a drug-free workplace, there are discounts that we receive in our state of Florida workers' compensation fees. We receive an annual 5% credit, which is $30,000 annually. We we do not recommend not being what is called a drug-free workplace because it also impacts our ability to certify and receive federal grants. You have to say, in order to receive many federal grants, that you are a drug-free workplace program. What does that mean? The drug-free workplace program under federal and state laws basically are saying we're going to operate our employment in a way that means people are not impaired at work. So we notice that we're a drug-free workplace as you apply. We notice it when you sign up to get hired. We give you a copy of the bargaining agreement and say we are a drug-free workplace. Here's how we do our testing. And it's bargained into each collective bargaining agreement as well. So there's layers upon layers of notification to employees when they apply and when they sign up to work here that says, in order to be a drug-free workplace, to qualify for these insurance discounts, to offer you workers' compensation and indemnify you, you can't be impaired at work. And so we're going to maintain these set of rules and testing guidelines in order to maintain these federal grants and these insurance discounts. That being said, there were a couple of other questions, if I could just touch on them. In the case of any employee that, and I don't know the employee that the commissioner spoke to, but in any employee that says, you know, I have a medical condition and I am worried about testing positive in the future, and I would like to let you know, HR, that I need an accommodation to be able to use this drug that the doctor has told me to use, whatever the drug is. We would meet with that employee and the attorneys and we would say, well, is this or is this not a safety sensitive job? Can the person receive this treatment and not be impaired at work? That's the first question. And then beyond that, we would go. So in many cases, the answer is yes, we can accommodate you. For this period of time, if you test positive and you've given us this note and this is part of your treatment, we're not going to create a situation where your employment is endangered in any way or discipline is implemented in any way. We're going to accommodate you. If you're a police officer with a gun or a lifeguard in a tower, the answer might not be the same. It might be, what alternative placement for some period of time do we have to offer you? Or we can't accommodate you during this period. Here's some leave that you need to take. So it depends. It depends on the nature of the job.
I appreciate that, Marla, and I agree. I'm all for a more joyful, productive workforce. Perhaps what we can do is evaluate if testing requirements are too stringent and burdensome. I could support a review of that, but I am comforted that we have a reasonable ability for accommodation. We are not restricting people's rights that are in some sort of medical situation, but do I care if somebody smokes marijuana at night when they're home on their couch? No, I don't. But there's real world implications for that, for some of these federal grants and funding. So in a perfect world, I'd love to say no. No, I have no issues with whatever people do in their personal time. And if we could, maybe lighten up testing requirements, I'd be happy to explore that. Well, excuse me. But to sit there and have this undertaking and pivot direction and lose some of the opportunities for state and federal funding and grants and have implications in health insurance costs, I don't think it's a measure I'd be supportive of. If I'm one of our many employees sitting here and saying, no, I'm drug-free by choice, but now my colleagues, to allow them to smoke marijuana, my health insurance costs are going to go up, I don't know what that would do for morale either. So, yeah, please.
Number one, it's not a drug, it's a medicine. Okay, so, and that's the mindset that needs to shift, is that it is a drug, just like you take, I suppose, an aspirin or a diazepam or whatever else you take. It is the same. There is no difference. There are people that are suffering from so much pain, too, physical pain. My item is not about the testing, but I would love you to bring forward an item about testing, and I will absolutely 100% back you and support you and co-sponsor it with you. My item is about allowing employees who have a medical diagnosis to get the medicine that they need. And I would like to move forward. What I would like to know, so we're going to $30,000 in insurance costs. How many federal grants? Can you give me a list of the federal grants that we have? Because I would like to see exactly what they are, what the financial implications of that. How many federal grants have required the federal drug-free workplace?
I would need to consult with the grants department. I know that I sign probably 5 a year. That's
5 a year, but
I'm-
how much? Like, how much would you say?
That's an estimate. I don't know the amounts because I'm not, what I'm signing is that the city, as HR director, the city is a drug-free workplace, and then I sign. So I get about 5 or 6 of those a year, and I would need to consult with the grants office to give you the answers to your questions.
So let's say that the overall financial impact, I guarantee you, is, I don't know what it is, but we can get the exact amount. And I would like you to go back 5 years and tell me annually exactly how many federal grants required a drug-free workplace. I would like to, actually, Jacqueline, you're in the office. Would you please have a meeting with Marla so we can schedule a meeting and go through all this data and find out what the financial impacts would be year over year? And, you know, my motion, and you guys might vote against it, I would like to, you know, I would like to move this and have a discussion at the full commission, and maybe, you know, between now and then, you guys can, you know, think about it. I don't feel like I have the support, but I am going to move it forward, and I do want to have it at the commission. My motion is to take this policy. If you have an illness, okay, and I would exempt the categories of if you're operating heavy machinery, and if you are a first responder, it does not apply to you, but to all other employees in the city of Miami Beach. I would like you to be able to have access to this medicine so that maybe you take this instead of a diazepam or an OxyContin or whatever else kind of pain medication you might have. So, and you can vote against it, Commissioner Magazine. I'm still allowed to move this to the full commission with a negative. I don't know how Commissioner Bott is going to vote on this, but.
But if I could, 1 second, and I think that's the basis of our discussion here is we do have that accommodation in place, correct?
Yes, yes. The answer is not yes for everyone. The answer is what can we do reasonably?
Right,
And
so
that's what
so-
we're required to do under federal law.
Well, you have an employee right now with cancer, and what have we done for him? Because this is going on for almost a year. Have we done anything for this employee? Because he came to me desperate. Nothing has been done for this employee. This employee has cancer, he has pain, and we have not done anything for him in a year.
In the meeting with you and follow up in the meeting with the union that was present when we discussed this item, I offered multiple times that if the employee wanted to privately meet with HR, I would be very amenable to that, and I stand by that offer. So I can't help someone that I don't know who they are or what they need, or, I mean, I can't help someone that hasn't come forward. So that being said, you asked a question about testing limitations. When you test for alcohol, you can test with, the tests show you whether someone's impaired or not because they have time limitations that are tied to how long it takes your body to process alcohol. Marijuana is a little unique in that all the other drugs we test for are like alcohol. They have similar, you know, tie-ins to impairment. Marijuana shows up when you test for marijuana. It can be like a 30-day window. You could have used marijuana 30 days prior, and then you have a result that shows a marijuana use, and you don't know if that use was 30 days ago or today.
I appreciate it. And what do other municipalities do? Are you familiar, the county, the city of Miami? Are we the outlier?
No,
Or?
they're all very similar to what we're doing. Anyway, there are new tests that HR is exploring with our medical officer to see if there are new protocols with these new approved tests. They're swab tests, and they have a much more narrow window of time of testing positive. So people could theoretically use marijuana 30 days ago and know that they're coming to work this week. And if we were using a different test that's more modern and it is now approved, then we would not be they would not show positive for something that was 30 days ago. So we are now currently in bargaining, discussing with our unions, we want to have an ability to change our testing protocols if these tests are better and they're more in line with measuring recent impairment.
So Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, commend your efforts. I'm likely not going to be supportive, but I don't want to thwart this from going to the full commission. Mr. City Attorney, and Commissioner Bott, I don't know where you're at on this, but if you're a yes, do you want to put your cards on the table?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think we are going to have to figure this out going forward. I would suggest the best way to do it is not to preempt the federal government, because as Chief Abello just pointed out, we get reimbursements for hurricane damage and expenditures through FEMA, Fire Department and Police Department both get USAI federal grant. Thank you for making me look so smart. But so there is money to be factored in that can be, thankfully we haven't needed, and I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to finish that thought, but a lot of money from FEMA. And hopefully we won't need a lot in the foreseeable future, ever again. But I don't want to jeopardize something. I do agree with you that it is a policy that needs to be updated. But I don't want to do it before the government structure that we depend on and are representative, and hang on, let me finish. Because it's kind of like cutting off our nose to spite our face, right? So yes, we need to update this. I'm really happy to hear that you're working on more nuanced tests, because I think it's wildly unfair that if somebody was at somebody's birthday party and had a hit off somebody's joint a month ago, they are now like at risk for, I don't know what happens. Do we tie them to a stake and burn them, or like what happens?
No, if they were to test positive and they explained that I had a hit a month ago and I'm not impaired, depending on their bargaining agreement, if it's a good employee, we'll work with them and we'll say, well, look, we're going to put you on what's called a last chance agreement. Under our bargaining rules, it says you can't use these substances. That's very clear. And we would say, for the next year or some defined period of time, depending on how long the employee's been here and if they're a good employee, the union agrees, the employee agrees, the city agrees, and we say, we're going to test you more frequently for some period of time, and if what you're saying is true and you're not using this substance regularly, then you're going to come off the agreement. We do since I've been here, I've probably entered into, I'm going to make up a number, over 30 last chance agreements with employees that test positive, and we don't endanger their job. They successfully complete the agreement and they come off of last chance agreement. It almost always happens.
I would suggest the following. It is going to have to be updated as culture evolves. I want to be in compliance with state and federal regulations so we don't impair things. I'm quite sure there are plenty of people who would be pretty pissed to have the annual insurance rate go up, and then also an additional 5% in the premium, because they're paying for something somebody else, I think if I recall correctly, if you smoke, you pay more for your insurance policy, but we don't all pay more for everybody's insurance if there are smokers in the organization.
Yes, but we're not factoring medical marijuana into those.
No, but that's my point. That's my point. So what I would suggest is that because there is an opportunity for individual accommodation currently, and because we are working on getting more nuanced tests, and because we need the federal support to figure out how to do this without endangering the financial impact, I will not be supportive of this at this time. However, I'm very supportive of the effort to prioritize making this better for everybody. And if it takes a year or two, and that's when the laws catch up, and then we can figure out how to do it. But at the end of the day, people take the jobs here knowing what the deal is. Like if you said, the job here is, you can only work from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. That's the working hours here. And somebody said halfway through their job, you know what, I can't do that anymore. I have different demands at home. We could accommodate that, or we couldn't, and they could change jobs. And I know that's a hard line, it's like kind of hard-ass response.
Mm-hmm. There are other massive public institutions. For example, Miami-Dade College does not have this designation. We are not terrorized with tests.
Let's get there.
Yeah.
Let's get ourselves there.
Well, I'm going to move it forward anyway, because I believe so strongly in this, and I do believe that this is a positive move for our corporate culture, and I believe that I would like Commissioner Magazine to also follow up to relax some of the current testing requirements that we have. We know that these are Reagan era policies, and they were designed really to incarcerate a lot of minorities. A lot of these policies were manufactured, okay? People have suffered in jail because of them. People have gotten fired because of them. And these, we know now that just say no. And by the way, it is not a drug anymore. It is medicine. The state of Florida, our state law, okay, and we live in a pretty conservative state, our legislature, and I believe in Miami Beach, it was 79%, okay, it passed by 79%. So I think we need to reflect what our electorate cares about, and they really came out to vote for this. We need to reflect our progressive values. By the way, the federal government also doesn't recognize paid parental leave, but guess what? The city of Miami Beach does, because we were progressive enough to change the law.
But there isn't,
And I'm just saying that, but you know, if we look at federal designations, I'm just using that logic. They said no to paid parental leave. I brought it before this body and we said we are going to create a benign policy so that when you have a baby in Miami Beach, over the first, I believe it's a generous policy, isn't it?
It's a very
Marla?
I
We
policy.
give a very generous policy. And you know what? There are other municipalities that don't have that policy, but we did it because I believe that it was the right thing to do. And we might differ in this belief, or you might feel uncomfortable doing this, but I will tell you that other large public institutions do not have this designation. The financial impact is in no way, I thought it was going to be much worse. I would like to see these grants. I would like to see them in writing, the grants and the amounts of the grants. And city employees of the city of Miami Beach, I'm going to fight for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to not feel like you're going to be terrorized by some test at any given point in time. And I'm going to move this to the full commission, and let's have a robust conversation about it, even if I don't have support.
So I appreciate that. I'm going to be a no, but if it comes back and there is a de minimis financial impact where the grants total $1,000 each, then I won't have those caveats or reservations.
And my motion, even though it's not going to be supported, would be to exempt first responders and anybody operating heavy machinery from this policy.
we just need to see the financial impact. I mean, if it's
Let's
$50
see the
million, that's a big financial impact. If it's $50,000, then we can probably figure that out. Once we also see what the impact is for people's premiums. Maybe there's a way to do it that you sign a waiver and say, you know what, I do enjoy the benefits of medical marijuana, and so then your individual premium costs a little bit different, the way you do with smokers. I'm just saying we're not there yet.
Mr. City Attorney, if there is a 1 to 2 recommendation against, can this still move forward to the full commission?
Because we only have 3 members here today, what I believe we should do is that this will go back with an unfavorable recommendation, but the commission can still discuss the item.
Wait, can I give them one last,
No, I'm good.
You don't have to vote yes or no on it. You're not voting on the policy right now. Why don't you preliminarily, and we have in our audience one of the state of Florida, and I did not invite you to come, but you are the authority on medical marijuana and got the law passed at the state level, and I've known you for many years. I've seen you around.
So come talk to me in between the next meeting.
Yeah, what I'm hoping.
I mean, it seems like there's Eric Stevens, not Mr. Baker.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay,
Please,
we're not.
you know I'm pretty liberal about how we run our meetings, but let's have some order. Come talk to me in between the next meeting.
Why don't you move it forward with
Well,
we're moving it forward, but why don't you consider, just for right now, you're not actually voting on the policy. Let's move it forward in a compassionate way. We'll get the data. If you look at the data in between now and when the vote is, and you hate it.
If you make
vote
a decision, I respect that, and I don't urge you or pull at you. I say, okay, that's her decision, and I respect that. I would ask if you do the same. What I'm telling you is I go into this with an open mind. I wouldn't have prevented this from moving forward, but given that we conversation, that's the matter I'm most comfortable in. If this comes back and we see the financial impact is going to be de minimis, there's an opportunity for me to turn that around. But right now, I don't have that sense or inkling. 5 or 6 grants, FEMA funding and things like that. my starting point is going to be a larger financial impact that I'm comfortable with. But in the event that that is incorrect, I'm open to changing my mind on this.
That is music to so many people's ears. You have no idea. And along with this, hopefully we'll remove some of these very, very stringent testing
I hope
requirements.
they
That's
don't
wonderful
light a
news,
joint
Commissioner
in
Magazine.
that favor
I
until
love
we
that.
get this policy passed.
Okay.
So if I can, it's to be moved to the commission with an unfavorable recommendation, the resolution, but it to be, the resolution be modified to exempt first responders. Is that correct?
And anybody operating heavy machinery. Anybody
To-
operating
to
heavy
the chair.
machinery.
I recognize that Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez uses the phrase heavy equipment and first responders. I will tell you that under federal law, CDL drivers cannot test positive for marijuana. So CDL drivers cannot have a CDL. It will be
Maybe we can have HR's
suspended.
impact about what the exempted classes should
And-
be.
Work on the exemptions between now and then when we move it to the full commission.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
If I could modify to just modify the resolution to allow for certain exemptions and just leave it.
Thank you.
And we'll let them figure that out.
And this is going to be, and I'm going to need Rick's help on this with Robert's rules. This is an unfavorable recommendation, and it's a 2-to-1 for an unfavorable recommendation.
By the way, I want to tell you guys a colorful anecdote of 2015 when I was elected. And by the way, the drug testing does not apply to commissioners. But it was an overall drug testing. I remember right after the election, I didn't know what was going on. And I had gone to a party like two days before, and I knew that I didn't even know that we were going to get tested for alcohol. Anyway, Ricky Ariel and I show up, and you couldn't see two more miserable looking people ever in Mount Sinai. And we're standing there, and we're waiting to be tested, when all of a sudden we both get a call from the city manager, and he goes, "Hey, this doesn't apply to the two of you." And we were like, you know, and so it's not even fair. It doesn't even apply to us. We're not getting swept. We're not getting tested. And you know what? If it doesn't apply to us, why should it apply to them? If the directors are giving them performance reviews and their performances are okay.
No,
Do you understand?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. Let's move on to item number 20. Discuss financial and manpower impact of extending law enforcement officer initiatives the Thursday nights during the 2 middle weekends of March. Commissioner Bott, if you want to kick this off, I co-sponsored this. I know we were both out there during spring break, so it's we know exactly what's going on and we're kind of we saw what happened. And I like that we're not going to be static. We're going to be dynamic and saying, this is what worked, this is what didn't. You were such a champion of that. So let me go ahead and kick this over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your co-sponsoring this item. Before I turn it over to Chief Acosta, I just, it worked really well this year. There are things that didn't work. There are things that did work. There are things that hopefully we can take our foot off the gas a little bit for next year. But I think one of the things that worked incredibly well that we want to actually do a bit more of is extend the law enforcement, the DUI and checkpoints, DUI checkpoints and LPRs Thursday night, understanding full well, Jason, that there's a cost. It did such a great job of deterring bad actors from doing crappy things in our city. So, if we have a few more years of this and extend the hours to cover a Thursday when the weekend really kicks off for a lot of people during the month of March, then I think we will be really more effective, even more effective, especially given that we know that most of the bad actors are the folks driving in with stuff in their trunk that they shouldn't have, as opposed to people who are flying in from parts, around the country. So have at it.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Chair again, Madam Commissioner. Paul Acosta here on behalf of the Police Department. We took a look at the financial impact of adding Thursdays to two of the highest impact weekends for March. We looked ahead and much like 2024, 2025 has 5 weekends in March. So we're going to fine tune and identify the most impactful weekends, the back-to-back weekends, typically the 2nd and 3rd or the 3rd and 4th. Adding the Thursday in terms of coverage and overtime expenses and including costs related to outside agencies. We anticipate, based upon what our budget was this year, or based upon the cost this year, it should amount to about 195,000 on the high end. And what we don't have and what we don't know is what other agencies are going to do next year in 2025 in terms of sending us an invoice for their services next year. We do know that requesting outside agencies to help us has impacted their agencies and their cities financially, and they have turned to us to take a look at how do we reimburse them for some of their costs, all of their costs. Do they reduce the number of people that they send here to assist us during spring break? So a lot of those factors are not considered in this particular fiscal impact and proposal here. So I just want to lay that out there. There's some unknowns. But for us right now, as we stand, if we were to mirror this year and push it to next year, we're looking at about 200,000 to add both Thursdays for spring break.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And when we say this, did you get the sense for Thursday night where maybe we could add some resources, but not the same amount as a Friday and Saturday? We don't want to sacrifice public safety, but some sort of, fine line between replicating our exact efforts on Friday and Saturday, but maybe not to that extent. So what I'm thinking is perhaps having man and woman power on 5th Street, on some of the entrances, that really serves as that deterrent that, hey, you know what, we actually are prepared here.
Yes, we definitely can do that. Absolutely, we can make those adjustments.
And is your Sunday night coverage as robust as Friday and Saturday night, or is that already tapered down?
No, it's as robust as Friday and Saturday.
Does it need to be? I mean, is that a
Yes.
way? Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd like to move the motion.
Yeah.
Move the item.
Yeah, with perhaps, the evaluation of if exactly mirroring our resources on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights are fully needed, or if we'd be able to find some sort of better tune or better balance of more resources on Thursday than we had last year, but perhaps not take it to a Thursday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday coverage level. I'm not going to get down to the minutia of, your operations, you're the experts, but if we'd be able to strike some semblance of balance there.
Understood.
So if I can, and as your CFO, maybe to ask if this item is then set to be a recurring one, or perhaps just a 2025 one time, which.
Let's start with the 2025 one time, because I think we all take it as a personal challenge that this isn't how we want to live March on in perpetuity.
Right. So if I believe then the motion will be to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to make a 2025 budget priority to add the 2 Thursday nights for enhanced law enforcement efforts during spring break 2025 in the amount of $200,000. And then obviously the police will look at if there's a pared down one that can be discussed. This will be an enhancement, a new enhancement that doesn't exist, but would be discussed at the July 12th FERC budget workshop. So I would ask Paul to work with our budget department to get that enhancement prepped.
Yes, sir.
ASAP.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to item number 5. Consider funding for artistic wayfinding signage at City Hall. Commissioner Bott, kick this over to you. If you could just tell us a little visualization about what you're talking about, I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, so as I was standing outside of City Hall for 2 weeks straight in the fall, I saw people coming across the plaza where the tree is and that seating area is, not knowing which direction the bay was, which direction the beach was, which direction Lincoln Road was, where the museums are, where's Washington. They were just totally turned around. And I know it says Miami Beach City Hall, but nobody even, like that, as bold and graphic as it is, nobody really sees that. We have the name of the Lincoln Road garage on the garage building, and it's, if I recall correctly, it says Lincoln Road with an arrow kind of straight up in the sky, which is not entirely accurate. And also you have to kind of walk either through a store or through a garage or around to get onto Lincoln Road. So I would propose that we do, and there's not a huge, my vision for this is not, a multi-$100,000 project, but to create an opportunity either with a local artist or local kids to design some kind of really cool, fun, engaging, visually stimulating, that's not an Ike kiosk, sculpture almost, or signposts, something a little less cliche than, the beach that way, like, what you see on beach postcards that are, generic. But it might be something that the Moonlighter Lab fabricating folks are able to kick in and help us, but have something that becomes a place where not only do people coming out of the convention center know which way to go, or people going across, but also it's something that people want to take a picture with. It is, we already have hundreds of thousands of people coming into this part of the city, and it is arguably our least graceful part of the city. There's a lot of room for improvement. We're going to have a convention center hotel any day now, and that's going to have a whole ton more people coming, and it's really going to elevate the look of this area. And I think that we need to do our part to make this welcoming and engaging and appealing.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner. From my standpoint, I'm typically very much against more signs, especially just directional. There's one sign in particular that really rubs me the wrong way. Driving north on Collins, and you're in Mid-Beach, and it says North Beach straight ahead. I think we've gotten to a point in society where, if you're going north and you're in South Beach or Mid-Beach, the next beach you're going to get to is North Beach. That being said, if this is of the artistic variety, that's what kind of really excites me, and how I'm thinking about this before I turn it over to Liz, perhaps before even putting some sort of budget item on, maybe this is where you're thinking, maybe not, give me direction, where we open this up to the community and say, come back with something visually and artistically really cool, and then we'll evaluate what the budget need is for that. Is that kind of along your line of thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I had pulled references, and I can include them in the, when it comes back to commission, of the kinds of things that I was envisioning, but I'm very happy to, and it doesn't need to be, Lisette, to your point, it doesn't need to be a renowned artist from somewhere. It would be great if somebody wanted to, because it's fun, but it could be, everybody who's grade 6 and under this is an open call to young artists, and we'll figure out a way to bring their vision to life, right? Like the people who make, take kids' drawings and turn them into stuffed animals. Like, there are a lot of different ways we could make this really a fun and engaging way to do this. Maybe there are local artists who would like to do this and sort of, volunteer their design and whatever, but I'm very open to how this.
If I may, through the chair. We have had high-level conversations with Moonlighter Fab Lab to do a type of partnership where we can engage a designer to provide input in public infrastructure. So this kind of falls along those lines. We can still work with them to engage a designer. I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility than engaging a visual artist. And they do have summer camp programs. So I think that there's some synergies there between the city and this amazing nonprofit organization. And I don't know if my colleague has anything else to add to that, but they also have 3D printing that we can use to kind of make a maquette. And I think it would be a wonderful opportunity also to engage our residents like we do with Legacy Purchase, and maybe narrow it down to 3 designs and have them vote and really get that community engagement that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And we also have in our Office of the Mayor and Commission a very talented designer and graphic artist in the form of George. Not you. I mean, tattoos notwithstanding. Georgie Milosevic, has a great track record, and this is what he has spent his career doing. So maybe making him a point person on this to work with you, Lisette, and kind of help bridge the initial creative vision of, if it ends up being a school project and it's kids with crayons on craft paper, and then help translate that with Fab Lab into something that could be functional. But I think that I love the idea of having it be something the community votes on, and all hands on deck. I think that's fantastic.
Yep, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
I'm 100% supportive. I think it's a great idea. We need to design the new signage across the city.
It's
Yeah.
work in progress.
It's work in progress. And, so,
Yeah,
I
there,
mean,
so there was a, if it's okay, well, Eric can probably give a better update on this than I can, but, or actually Liz, you probably are deep involved in it as well. There was a whole signage inventory that was done, over the course of the last year approximately, and I think that report is being finalized or has just been finalized. And then we'll figure out what we have, what we need, and then that will, in theory, trigger an update of our entire Miami Beach branding, because then it'll be translated back to the signage. So that is a project near and dear to my heart.
okay, well, I think it's a wonderful item, and, I think you should move it, and I will be your second if you want. And,
Fabulous, thank you.
simple.
You can.
Thank you. It sounds like, and I'll need help here if I got this off, is the return to commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to engage with Moonlighter Fab Lab to develop artistic wayfinding signage at City Hall?
Are we going to limit it to Moonlighter Fab Lab?
I think there needs to be more conversation internally about how exactly we want to do it, but it could include engaging with Moonlighter Fab Lab. It could include engaging with local artists. It could include a call to community submissions. I think it just needs to be.
Maybe I can
Yeah,
simplify
local
the language
schools and
instead
things
of
like that.
saying engage with Moonlighter Fab Lab to engage with external parties. And keep
Engage with-
using a more generic term like an external party. Or
Do we want to limit it to community, based parties?
No, I think it's, I think it's return to commission with a favorable recommendation to explore how to make this happen, which could include any combination, but is not limited to engaging with Fab Lab, having schools involved, having community involved, hiring an artist, getting an artist to donate, but those are things that we could kind of start off with and then have the conversation about how to make it happen.
maybe I can simplify it one more time, if I can. Returning commission in favor of recommendation, direct this administration to develop an artistic wayfinding signage at City Hall program.
Is that broad enough?
That's flexible enough.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yep, thank you so much.
Thank
Give
you,
me one
guys.
second on that. Lizette, you know what, while you're up here, can
I'm
we?
sorry, there wasn't a vote technically. I need a vote technically.
I'll
All
move
in
it.
favor?
Oh.
Yes,
I
Commissioner
move it.
Rosa Gonzalez, was your second,
Yep.
and I think all three in favor.
Thank you.
Yep, if we could discuss item number 6, discuss special event guidelines and city sponsorships.
That was deferred, Chair.
Oh, it was, okay. No worries. Let's, do item number 8, fencing for vacant and abandoned lots.
Hi, everyone. So we got it passed in the city that if you have a vacant lot,
Oh, welcome, Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez.
we passed for everyone else that if you have a vacant lot, it has to be fenced and landscaped and lit and beautiful. But we exempted ourselves from this. And, but some of our vacant lots, we cleaned up the one at the Barclay, which was really bad before. By the way, I was over there the other day and it actually looks really good. You can't see inside, the site is secure. I don't see anybody complaining about it right now because we finally cleaned that up. But I do think that this should apply to us too. Because I think that if we do make it apply to us, we will beautify our city. So I don't know how you feel about this, and I have to actually, what was the financial impact?
And
Liz?
before you,
Lot?
Liz, it's a lot, but before you go into that, when I heard this original discussion, I was saying, yes, of course, this makes sense. But then when I was actually going folio by folio, I said, you know what, it really makes sense for a Commissioner, I think I want to catch your attention with this. So when I originally heard this, I said, yes, of course, this should apply to us. And for properties like the Barclay, fully supportive. But when I was actually going through our agenda and the memorandum and going folio by folio, a lot of this were properties in North Beach. And I'm sitting there saying, wow, I'm not looking at this as like a vacant, abandoned property. This is actually quasi-green space. If I'm just walking along up in North Beach here, I'm not saying, oh, this is an abandoned lot. Now, there's other things that we could do to beautify it, but if I'm a neighbor there, I'm actually going to be upset if these are fenced off because, and this was a surprise to me. right?
Well, then I think we should have this apply then only if it is a vacant building, not a vacant lot.
Yeah, and can I build on that?
Mm-hmm.
So I had the same reaction, so, I mean, Kristen, I was really supportive of this, and this came out of the planning board stuff that we did when I was still on the planning board. And for instance, with the Deauville, just having a clean aluminum fence makes that hideous site look so much better. Does make the site itself look better, but the gaping hole doesn't like assault your senses. Gee, I don't have strong feelings about this at all. But to Joe's point, there's some images in here that definitely need to be beautified. But there are so many that just look like beautiful, passive parks. And I would actually suggest that your suggestion of if it's a building, it should be fenced in. But if it's not, like for instance on this image, it is this sort of.
And I think this should actually apply to almost every vacant lot.
So
that if it's a vacant lot,
it should be grassed over like
Yeah.
this, and so not this sort of hodgepodge of some scrabby grass and some gravel, but look how gorgeous this is. This is go play soccer.
Yeah,
So,
no.
I would like to limit it to buildings and in situations where there's already beautifully maintained grassy lots, there's nothing further that needs to be done. But if there are lots that need some TLC that have some gravel or exposed and yucky things, that gets upgraded to a beautiful grassy lot.
And by the way, my ordinance applies to every single vacant lot in the city of Miami Beach, because I think I need to change my ordinance to say only vacant buildings, okay, or vacant building sites or construction sites. If you have vacant green space, I don't think we need to fence that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would move it to the full commission, only have it apply to us if it's a vacant building.
Well, could we actually keep it here for another month and have facilities come back and say, under this new direction, this is what the financial impact would be? Because when we looked at all vacant properties, the financial impact was going to be upwards of $2.5 million. And even if we said we want to fence in all this green space, it wouldn't have been feasible anyway. So I'm hoping with Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez's new direction, not only are we saving green space, but we can also much reduce the financial burden as well.
Okay, so my motion would be what he just said, and we can bring it back here.
Can I make an amendment to that?
Mhm.
So what he just said, and that any green space that is in good shape in part of it, but is in crappy shape in the other part of it, to bring it all up to the good shape across the board. So like there's some that you won't have to do anything to, and there's some that you need to sod and take over that way.
And I'm actually going to amend my overall ordinance so that it doesn't really apply to vacant green space, only vacant buildings or construction sites. So we need to amend that too at the next meeting. So, okay, I'll second. Wait, I made a motion.
If you amend it to be only buildings or construction sites, there are some green spaces that are uneven in the lot. So like part of it looks great and part of it looks terrible. So what I'm suggesting is for the part that looks terrible, get it sodded and make it uniformly looking great.
You mean for us or for
us?
Private. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's my motion and a second.
I don't know what
We'll
he
bring
needs
it
to
back
say,
next month.
but I know if Eric comes up, we should let him speak. For better or for worse, I don't know.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and committee members. Eric Carpenter, Deputy City Manager. Just wanted to bring up for discussion purposes the potential of considering a property with a zero lot line as something that might be a little bit different than one, because I think what we're all envisioning, or certainly what I was envisioning, is a vacant property with a parking lot or a unkept vegetative area similar to the Barclay, which becomes an eyesore.
Unsightly, only for unsightly vacant parcels. We don't want to fence in
The Bar
lovely
Carlo.
green space.
Well,
We only want to fence in something that's ugly. So I don't know how to legislate that because that's so subjective.
Use
so.
your nuance, like,
You'd have to-
let's
yeah.
use practical thinking.
So
Hey,
we'll
come
just do.
identify the folios where it's like, you know what, this is the Barclay 2.0. This is where fencing would be required, and give us the financial impact. And if you could have pictures that identify each of those folios that we'd be looking to apply these parameters to.
And I would like to add something else. I think after, and I think it was based on, I don't know whose item about aspirational quotes. If we do fence something in, I think we should add in like cool aspirational quotes about Miami Beach, like historical quotes, something to educate
Few
people
Cheech
too.
and Chong ones.
Yeah. Well. Ha ha ha. Okay, so yeah, and that's like a separate thing altogether. Jackie, put that on the list.
We'll come back with a revised list. Just know that we did have the landscaping cost for each one of the folios as well as the fencing cost for you to select from. But we'll revise this list based on your direction.
Right, so it would be those that need fencing and landscaping, and those that just need landscaping, those that don't need either.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank
And
you.
even if you just sawed it, the cheapest thing.
So if I may, because this was an ordinance that was sent down here for review on that was, and there was a lot of different discussion here. Could it return to commission with a favorable recommendation that the fencing ordinance apply to city properties if it's a vacant building that does not have 0 lot lines?
I think we want to get the financial impact. We want to keep it here.
So return to FERC.
Or can we just not keep it open for the next month and?
Yeah, we'll just return as appropriate. I just want to make sure facilities has clear direction, yes.
Perfect. Let's get number 12. I don't think there's going to be a.
12 was also deferred.
12 deferred. That was you. Are you going to leave after? Maybe if you said you were.
If I can, there's not a number left. I can tell you the numbers that are left. Number 24, which was the new one that was just added from Wednesday's commission meeting related to the roll-offs. Number 21, hiring detention officers is remaining. The ballrooms, number 2, small business grant 9, and West Avenue Phase 3, number 17 is left.
Oh, I thought I called 17. You said it was deferred.
No, number 17, no. West Avenue Phase 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the call order. Okay, let's go with 9. 18. What's 18?
Number 18 was Mr. Commissioner Suarez. He withdrew it before he left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Excellent.
Yeah. God, that leaves us with number 9. Okay. Let's go.
So I'd like to amend this, actually.
You can read the item into the record, sorry.
Sure. Yes, I'm sorry, Jason.
Thank you. Number item discussion regarding small business grant funding for businesses in August and September months, number 9.
Okay. So, I was just on social media yesterday seeing that, the Freeze ice cream shop is closing after I don't know how many years of being on Miami Beach. What? The Freeze?
I had a contract that was signed in February of 2020. Thank God I didn't.
The point is it's harder and harder for small mom and pops, especially in food service, to make it because we become increasingly hyper seasonal because our weather is so extreme. And what I wanted to do is create this program. And, we said $10,000 grants. I would make it $5,000 grants because what happens in the off season is, if your rent is $10,000 or $12,000 a month, okay, and you're trying to pay your payroll because you want to keep your trained employees there, it's very, very hard. And we do have the funding to hand out these small grants of $5,000. It doesn't seem like a lot, but they could apply for a couple of months. Even if when you look at our tourism taxes, I think the worst months are actually like August and September. Is that where our tourism taxes are lowest?
Yes.
Yes, right? Yeah. I mean, they just drop. The drop is dramatic. And then you have added to that, the Jewish holidays in September really kill business because people either leave town or they're not going out to eat because they're having family meals. So it might not seem like $5,000 per month would be that helpful, but I think in some cases it just allows small businesses to breathe. I would have this apply to local businesses doing under a certain amount of revenue. Local businesses doing under, I don't know, a couple million.
These are physical But, yeah, what are the parameters on
Food
this?
service, so we said, 10,000, but I would say the city commission allocated 200,000. Okay, so we did this once during COVID, and it worked out pretty well. This is just something that I'd like to pilot 1 year. Maybe nobody even takes it, maybe nobody even, takes it, but a business like the Freeze, it could be a big difference, because it could cover your payroll. These kids scooping ice cream at, minimum wage, at least, you cover your payroll, or you supplement your rent, or you do something to help, or your utilities, which are become hyper expensive with, air conditioning, even, your FP&L bill. So I think that we should try it. We give so many other grants to so many other organizations that are not operating businesses in Miami Beach. A lot of, 501c3s. I saw we just gave, Pride Lines testing like $50,000. I mean, why wouldn't we share a little bit back with our businesses that we enjoy, especially smaller businesses in North Beach? I think it will help. I think it will go a long way.
And this will be me getting on my soapbox for a little bit, so excuse that. But
If you don't support it, it's fine. I can withdraw it.
No,
but,
it's not
I mean,
that. But what rubs me is over the years we've taken or maybe forgone initiatives to truly diversify our economy and make us a more full-time residential area. In fact, I just saw a social media post that went viral last week, and it was from Julie and Henry's downtown food hall, and shots of Brickell saying, "We are no longer a seasonal town. The streets are packed here. We are a full-time residential community." So I would just ask, if I consider things like this, we can't keep taking Band-Aid approaches. We need to say, we've identified the problem, right? These businesses are dying in the summer, but it's because we haven't taken the steps to really say, okay, let's mature as a city. We don't need to be double, triple down in tourism. We can build a full-time economy with full-time residents, and we don't need to be this cyclical, hospitality-driven town. Let me turn it over to Heather. Let's talk about what some of these parameters could be.
well,
Um,
we have the criteria right here. You got to be in business. You've had to have a BTR for 2 years, registered as an active entity with Florida Division of Corporations, in good standing, not a national chain or franchise. You have to have your BTR up to date, no outstanding federal, state, local taxes, and revenue annual sales limit as evidenced by recent business tax filing. What was the number? What was the cap, Heather, on the total revenue that you needed to be in order to be eligible?
Well, it would depend on the size of the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are just local.
But what do you mean by that,
Mom
Heather?
and
I
pops.
mean, when we say, what would be the maximum amount of revenue a business could receive if they're going to apply for this?
Well, a small business based on the federal government, it could be over $1 million. So we would just want to make sure that the revenue that they were saying that they presented in their application also replicated what they had filed.
Right, but what are we saying? We don't want to give this to Live nightclub, that makes $25 million.
It's not gonna make any difference for them.
Right,
We want,
so what I'm
I would
saying-
do a cap of like businesses doing under like $2 million per year.
Right,
Okay,
and that's,
our real mom and pops,
that
yeah,
would
and
be
we have all
within-
sorts of, you can't, if you're a nightclub, liquor, a gun shop, pawn shop, none of the tattoo parlors, piercings, none of those agricultural stores, they're not eligible. And by the way, something really cool happened as a result of this, and Heather, thank you for this, the GMCVB has agreed to not necessarily help fund this, but the GMCVB would say that they would waive Miami Spice funding for restaurants, which is actually a great deal because that's like $1,500. What's the price to be in Miami Spice?
I think it's like $1,000.
Yeah, I would like to have this happen in July, because when does Miami Spice kick in? August, September?
July and August.
Oh, it's July and August.
July, August,
So we missed
September,
the
yeah.
boat for July. Do we have to legislate that? That's not something we
No,
have to
you mean for the
legislate.
GMCVB to do that? No,
Yeah.
they can do that on their own.
We should right now, because I think we can have this done, we should put out some communication to our businesses and let them know that the GMCVB is willing to waive the Miami Spice fee for certain restaurants, because a lot of restaurants don't want to do that because $1,500, just, they could do a direct advertising.
I'd want to return to the GMCVB. We talked about this with them in January, but I'd want to
go back to them because I don't know what is involved in their communications to do it for July, August, September. But
Okay, so I guess that portion could be for the next year, but, you know, I'd like to move it to the full commission as is with a business cap of doing less than $2 million a year. It's not very many grants, it's $200,000. This is direct impact, going directly back into the people that live here and work here and do business here. And I guarantee you, they will be very grateful. The county does something like this
They
too.
would need
Each
a physical
commissioner gives them
location?
out. Pardon?
The business would need a physical location?
They would have to be a registered business with a BTR for the city
BTR.
of Miami
Right,
Beach.
I get that, but let's say somebody had a business out of their home, they had a BTR, but they're shipping things on Amazon, right?
We did make that as a stipulation that you have to have a storefront.
Oh,
have to have a
that
separate-
you do have to have.
And
a-
I would
Oh,
actually, I would
okay.
exempt real estate also. We don't have that on the exemption list. I don't think any real estate.
Would you be open to that friendly amendment, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, because that you had to have a physical storefront?
No, of course, you need a physical storefront, and real estate should be ineligible also. Because they seem to be flush.
So home-based businesses are already exempt, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, it is already exempted.
And also just, sorry, with your permission, we put this, the funding for this program in, as an enhancement in fiscal '25, so it wouldn't be for
Or not
this
this
month,
year?
yeah.
Not this year.
It would
For
be for
next
next
year.
year. Mhm.
How come we didn't get it done for this year? Because it wasn't called. It's been on here for 6 months. That's too bad because it's, you know, it's important. There's no way to get this done for this September and October. Yeah, I think we can do a budget amendment for this, and I would encourage us to do it and just have the grants done for this year, because why should we wait an entire year when August and September is gonna be hot, rainy? Now we have rain events, okay, and we're getting bad PR about like rain events too. I mean, now more than ever. And by the way, during those days of rain events, nobody is going out to eat. And you know what it is when your sales, when you have a $10,000 or $15,000 monthly rent and you go 3 days with no revenue, it kills you for the month. That's it. Your profit wiped out. So,
Can I just ask some questions to make sure I'm understanding correctly? Basically, this is gonna go just to restaurants, is what we're saying, effectively.
Well, actually, when this was first heard, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez wanted it just to be restaurants, but
Right.
then Commissioner Fernandez asked that it be open to.
No, I
others.
understand that.
Okay.
But now we've, home-based businesses, obviously, you must have a storefront, obviously. But no real estate, no, like, what other, so it's restaurants, coffee shops, food-based businesses, but what other businesses? 'Cause-
Retail.
On page 107 of your
I'm
bucket
thinking
list,
the
it's every
clothing
business.
boutique, on 71st Street.
stuff like that.
Okay, so to play devil's advocate, because of course I want to see our businesses thrive, I would suggest that to run a business well, you need to plan for where you have your business. And if you know you're living in a seasonal town, you need to plan your business P&L accordingly. And so if you make, Jason, you've told the story about growing up in your dad's pet store, and you knew that the bulk of the business was generated over, December, January, whatever, and August was inconsequential. You have to run your business knowing that you're going to have fallow months. I would suggest.
There's one other thing that we could do. We could do it per commission office like the county does. Each one of us, if we took the 200,000, we divided it by 7, each of us could hand out 6 different grants to applicants who apply to each of us.
I think it needs to be out of the hands of commissioners. I think that sets up all kinds of drama that nobody needs.
Because that's how the county does it. Okay, so you're not supportive,
Well,
Commissioner
no,
Bott?
let me finish my thought. I'm wondering if there's a way, because it doesn't seem like there's any stipulation, any requirement for why you need this. So somebody might apply for this where they actually had a perfectly good month, right? So could it not be retroactive that if you, had whatever, for whatever reason, August and September were disastrous for you, then we can give you a grant to make up for your, what happened. But to hand it out,
Just
It's
in
not a
antici-
big amount. It's
I
a
understand that.
$5,000 grant, and it's showing goodwill to our businesses. You
but
come
I
before
wanna-
the commission.
I-
I just want to, and I'm not like every single time that people have grants. I don't necessarily always. Always 100% agree with some of the monies that we hand out in very large amounts. I see it all the time, 50,000, 20,000. You've had tons of grants. I don't vote against it. You know why? Because even if we're really not getting anything back, because a lot of times we don't. And I support it. And you know why I support it? Because thank goodness, and I'm so grateful that we have this extra added revenue from tourism and our large property valuations, and we can show this goodwill. And we don't necessarily do it for the impact of our businesses. And this is something that, first of all, we don't even know if anybody's going to apply. But I guarantee you, this is not an easy application. And if somebody goes through the process of filling this out for $5,000, it's because they need to apply the $5,000 to either their payroll or their rent. And if not, we are going to continue to see the freezes close. Because unfortunately, as more high net worth individuals buy properties and live here only half the year, many people who live here year round used to, they would live here, they'd go on vacation for 2 weeks. Now we have people that 6 months and 1 day are living here, and then they're out of here the rest of the time.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Can we do it in such a manner that it is encumbered to be used only for payroll or only for rent?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not utilities.
What's that?
Not utilities.
Or utilities.
Because if you're in the memo, we have utilities, professional services, which is payroll, marketing, technology, rent, and repairs and replacement of equipment. That's what
Okay,
they
so
could use
definitely
it
not
for.
that.
So rent, payroll, utilities.
Yep.
You only want payroll and utilities and rent.
And is the thought of this is going to be a one-time this year item, or
It's
is
a
this
test,
just?
right? This year's a test?
This year, well, first of all, they're proposing it for next year, but I really think that more than ever, we need it this year, because we've seen that we get this rain, and unfortunately, we get the rain around dinner. So people aren't going out to Lincoln Road. Do you know how many people on Lincoln Road last year, these businesses who are normally, they're losing so much money.
But we live in South Florida. It rains during the summer in the late afternoon. Like, that is just a fact of life.
Shuttering. I mean, they're closing. I just think that,
Oh, so I'll support this if you promise me that we have a serious, honest to God discussion about why some of these businesses are being pressured, because giving $5,000 to a business on Lincoln Road is not going to make structural changes
Not at all.
in our economy.
Yeah,
But
but
if
when
you-
you're losing 20,000,
No,
let's say that you're
just hear me out.
shouldering a
Yeah.
$20,000
Well,
loss per
okay,
month, and
so-
then because
right.
of our grant, it becomes a $15,000 loss. You say
Right.
to yourself, well, at least I'm getting some, and maybe they go to the county and they get an additional $5,000
Okay,
from
so I
Higgins or
get that.
Steinberg.
And against my better judgment, I will be supportive in helping this out if you promise that we can have some of those discussions about why businesses on Lincoln Road are losing $20,000 a year. Because it's not a new phenomenon that we're just getting rain in South Florida or it's hot here in the summer. We have some structural issues about our economy that need to be addressed, and it's not through handing out $5,000 to 40 businesses, right? So I'll be supportive of this, but we have to have serious conversation, exactly, about some of the structural issues for why these businesses may be in need of this money.
No, and I'm telling you, the seasonality, it's become hyper seasonal. Our working class can no longer afford to live here, and most people who did live here have now sold their homes to extremely high net worth individuals that are only living here 6 months in a year. They are out of here as of May. We don't see them again till December. I mean, and that's really what it is, because living here full time and not being a high net worth individual, when you have to shoulder our insurance costs and the increasing utility costs, I mean, it's just super expensive.
But that comes at a time when every single neighborhood in our surrounding proximity has decreased their seasonality.
Like, it's for businesses like Cheeseburger Baby.
I
it's for
get
businesses
that,
like you know.
I'm going to support this. So, you know, listen, we're living, our resort taxes are flat or up. Our stock market is at record highs. Our economy, employment is at record lows. So I'm sitting here from a financial and economic perspective saying, if this is ever needed, now is not the time. But I'm going to go ahead and support this if you promise we can have some discussions about the structural issues impacting our economy that are very unique and specific to Miami Beach.
As long as it doesn't make us look like Dubai, I'm okay with that.
If I could add one question before I help to craft a motion. The item is presented, the program is presented by the Economic Development Department, had a $100,000 price tag. Is that the?
We're gonna give out 20 grants? All right, I'm okay with that.
Okay. And then if I can, I'm going to try to craft a motion basically. So return to commission.
200.
No, 100.
It was set at 100, because we were doing $10,000 grants at 100, because it is a pilot program, so.
So
All
we-
right, so we'll do 20 grants the first year, and let's see who applies. Let's get a list of businesses who do apply. Let's get some feedback from those businesses, and they can, you know, I don't know how much it's gonna help, but at least we're showing that we care and that we understand what's going on.
Yeah, and if we could add as a stipulation, the 20 businesses that receive grants, if we can get an informal feedback about the state of business in Miami Beach, why they're reaching out for this grant, what we do good, what we do bad, and then what they would like to see and how they could be further helped going forward.
We can add a survey to
Kristen,
the application.
Commissioner, I know you care deeply about this community, so I thank you for that passion.
So again, I believe it would be return to commission with a favorable recommendation to make a one-time 2025 budget priority to implement an August-September small business grant program as presented in the amount of $100,000 with the amendment that it would only be applicable to payroll, rent, and utilities. It would be only applicable to businesses with a $2 million revenue cap, and no real estate agency would be added to the ineligible businesses.
Yeah, but my is 2024.
Just for I've heard from the city manager, it's just not possible to develop, implement, and roll that out in 30 days. So the recommendation of administration would be as if this to be explored, it would be a 2025 program.
Given the fact that my item has languished on this agenda for months and months, and it has not been called, I would ask for your support to try to roll this out for at least the month of September for 2024. Would you accept that, Commissioner Magazine?
To be fair, I did ask if you wanted this or the Sistine Chapel, and you chose the other. But
If I can also just process-wise, since this is a referral to
Could we-
discuss it, this would go to commission in July for the commission to approve it. And if they did approve it, we would return with a budget amendment in September, which is after the fact, just process-wise. Also, just the ability, and I was getting communication from our city manager, the concept of being able to develop, roll this out, implement this in such a short time frame is difficult. Let's just say.
Disappointed that I have this on. I mean, when was my item originally? This is what upsets me.
I
though,
really
because
wouldn't get into this, okay?
Well, I mean, it does upset me because we are going to have
Do you-
seasonality, and because it's sat here, and I don't think this. I'm just saying. And I
Kristen,
have
do you
to say
think
it
I end
because-
meetings early and I say, you know what, I'm gonna end an hour early so I don't call Kristen's items? Okay, every single meeting you sit here and say, oh, we didn't get to this. We sit here for 3 or 4 hours at a time and nonstop, hear item after item after item after item.
Okay, but it's not me. The reason I'm upset is not because, it's not about me. It's about not being able to help people because my item wasn't called. And that's it. It just hurts my feelings. I can have feelings and be a politician. I can have feelings.
So, commissioners, we could potentially be able to, if it gets approved through the commission in July, that we could potentially try to get it rolled out for August, September. We'll try. We're a small department, but we will do our best to try to get it out if that's possible.
It's fine.
If that's possible, that would be great.
I'm sorry to contradict, but there's a funding difficulty. There is no funding to fund this. So that's also part of the issue. So I'm not sure how to proceed with this in such a rapid manner. So if does the Economic Development Department have $100,000 to cover this expenditure?
We don't have $100,000 to cover it, but we might be able to cover some to roll it out.
So I just need to know what the motion is. Okay. So if you could call the vote on the favorable recommendation for the 25 program.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll show it unanimously approved. Thank you.
Ballrooms. Item number 2.
Item number 2, discuss ideas to increase utilization of ballrooms at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Item number 2.
Thank you. Gotta lighten the air a little. Hi, I'm Heather Shaw. I'm the Interim Director for Economic Development, and this is an item that was brought by Mayor Minor in January of this year, 2024, where he had made a request to have a discussion about the utilization of the Convention Center's ballroom, and that he was concerned that the public wasn't getting equal use of the ballroom. So just to give you some history, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but you know that after we did this massive reimagination of the convention center, millions of dollars was placed into the convention center to take it up to where it is now. It is a world-class building that has multiple ballrooms. We have a large grand ballroom. We've added multiple new meeting rooms and have brought up the amenities of the convention center so it could be a world-class building that can attract the type of clients that we would like in the convention center. We divide up the convention center in terms of the clients as priority ones. These are people who come in who have more than 15,000 rooms on peak. We have priority 2s that are 1,000 meetings, and then we have priority 3 clients that are less than 500 rooms on peak. So we kind of divide them that way. And then also the way that we think about the sale of the convention center, we want to make sure that we always have the great amenities for the convention center, meaning all the ballrooms and the meeting rooms. And we do this so we don't just attract a large quantity of clients, but quality clients. We want people who are going to have deep pockets, who are going to utilize the building the way we want to, and not on a rapid basis, but in a way that is more meaningful. And when I say meaningful, is that they're bringing the reason that most cities have a convention center is to stimulate the economy. We want to bring people here who are going to go to our restaurants, stay in our hotels, utilize our businesses, and that's what we want. We want those types of businesses. But on top of that, we also want to enhance our reputation of being a great destination, and the convention center does that by bringing also groups that come, even smaller groups that may not take over the entire convention center, but may have smaller ones. And then third, and of course most important, is that we want to make sure that our residents can utilize the space, which we do. But we also want to make sure that we're doing it in a smart way. We want to utilize the convention center space first and foremost for those who are going to bring revenue, that are going to bring people to the destination, who are going to in turn put money into our economy. And so we utilize those dates first for the clients. And the dates that are not utilized, we always offer up to our residents, to nonprofit organizations or not-for-profit organizations, which I'm sure you all are familiar, like that you've approved on a commission for some of the nonprofits that come in, like the 5,000 Role Models for the Martin Luther King. We did Pride Park. We did the Pride Park event in Pride Park for the Family Day. We're doing Style Saves. We have a number of events that come in that we utilize for the convention center. So here's the rub. We do want to encourage a lot of the residents to come to the convention center, but we don't want to do it at the expense of our hotels. We have very large hotels here that can accommodate large weddings, that can do 1,000 person events. We don't want to take away business from those hotels and put them in the convention center. So we, as the convention center, make sure that if they're weddings, quinceañeras, or bridal showers, or honor programs where they're giving away awards, if it can fit into a hotel, we tend to steer them to the hotels, because we want to also help. They're part of our economy as well. So I think that maybe where there may be we try to create a balance, and there may be some disconnect in communication as to when some people are coming to the convention center saying, they can't get a date, or the cost may be a little prohibitive, or that we've steered them to a hotel where they want to be at the convention center. If they want to be at the convention center, we definitely welcome them, but we also want to make sure that we kind of keep our economy balanced by making sure that our hotels have the opportunity to at least pitch to these organizations and as to whether they wanted to use them or not. So in the end, all of this, and it's in the memo that I've written, it is about balance. It is about making sure that the residents do get to utilize the convention center, that we utilize it for like the Hall of Fame, and we did Muhammad Ali, that we do have those events, but we also make sure that it's not at the expense of our other businesses that can take advantage of the clients that are coming to town, or that are in town that want to do that.
Thank you, Heather. So what is the ask today?
I think that the mayor just wanted to have a discussion on how we could better utilize the convention center, and we do that through you. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Do you know where this is coming from? When we went to Surfside do you remember when we had that dinner in Surfside and we all drove up to the temple on 95th Street? When we were having dinner there, he said, this is a Miami Beach organization. Why are they holding this in Surfside? And they said they were having a problem finding large venue spaces. So what he wanted to do, and the reason he brought this item forward, was that he said at the time, we were having an informal discussion. I wonder why, we don't offer to host these types of community events, or at least open it up so that they spend their money with us in our convention center rather than going to Surfside. And I think that was his vision. But at the time, I hadn't really thought of the fact that, if we start to promote our convention center for local events like that, we would be taking away from, hotels. I think there is a market for something in between. I don't know what action could be taken, but I do know that was his thought process.
And with permission, and a good example is the MIA Legacy Awards. They were taking place at the Diplomat Hotel, which is outside of Miami Beach, for years and years. And they had come to us about having a location, and they went to the convention center, and it just wasn't the right fit for them. So we were able to steer them to the Lowe's Hotel, and it was a phenomenal event. And it was something that could be brought to Miami Beach, and they were able to weigh out whether they wanted to do it at the convention center or one of our hotels. And I think a lot of it is really about us, continuing to have outreach to the community and letting them know the types of space that we have available. And again, we don't have, the power to say where someone wants to go, but we can definitely continue to offer and showcase all of the spaces that we have within the city, and that's what we continue to do.
I have a question. Part of it is also that we don't have the hotel built there, so that is a chunk of business that we are not going to be getting until that is online. Is the convention center able to host events where a kosher kitchen is required?
I believe so. I believe that Sodexo will allow them to come in and they bring in like a portable kitchen.
Okay.
Our kitchens are not kosher.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think this is also more of not the priority 1, priority 2 clients. These are local organizations that are trying to have a one-day event versus a multiple-day event. So this does not include like hotel rooms or anything that we typically like to have. So I believe that was it.
So do you need anything from us, or do you want to, should we close this out?
This is actually one of the few just discussion items at FERC, so it could just be it's the Economic Development Department presented, and this could just be noted as an item presented and closed if the committee is amicable to that.
I am amenable to that, and I'll make that motion to close this out. You guys? I'm making a motion to close this out.
All right. We'll show the item closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enough.
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you.
You know what? Then you should be chair if you would like to decide what items to be called.
Just saying that my item was called, is from December. It's the only one from December.
It didn't get here until February.
Yeah, because it's not being called anywhere. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're moving forward. We're fine.
I already said my piece.
Mr. CFO, what items do we still have outstanding for today?
I know we have a short amount of time, I think, to be able to close this out. And if I could just add, as we have our CIP
Anybody
interim
else?
director come up, just, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, let me read the item into the record first. Number 17, discussion regarding prioritization of identifying funding for Phase 3 of the West Avenue Resiliency Project during the fiscal year 2025 process. Number 17, and before I recognize our interim director, I believe, if you could correct me, is there is not actually funding appropriation request needed for Phase 3 for FY25. It would be beyond that. Is that correct?
Interim Director for Capital Improvements, David Gomez, that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. This item specifically talks about making it a budget priority during the 2025 budget process for the Phase 3 of the West Avenue. But as I said, there is nothing listed as an appropriation requirement for Phase 3 during 2025. There will be a request probably in 26 or 27.
Yes.
But for 25, there actually is no additional funding required to continue moving forward Phase 3.
So where do we go with this?
I think that this is a discussion.
I mean, sure, yes, it's a critical infrastructure project. We need it prioritized. We have a lot of priorities, right? So where can this funding start coming from?
Well, this would be something that would probably be discussed during the 26 budget
And we're talking like
process.
$10 million around?
I believe it's 20. 21 and a half.
And could this ever be done through the issuance of stormwater bonds?
Yes, it can. Portion of it at least, yes.
Okay.
I believe, so of that 20-some million dollars that is short on that, just so you know, we are actively pursuing grants to help close that gap. I believe that, because these neighborhood improvement projects are funded through three sources traditionally. One is stormwater, the other is water and sewer, and the third is what they call the above ground portion. That's really going to be your asphalt and your streetscape after the fact. I don't know, David, if you have that breakdown of the funding gap, at which one of those categories has that decrease? I think Maria does. And it comes to water and sewer and stormwater, those would be bondable and would become part of a upcoming future issuance, which we would be, bringing to FERC during an issuance. It was not part of the 85 million that we did the declaration of intent on the water and sewer. Those were all critical needs projects, not neighborhood improvement, but we would go back and maybe modify that declaration of intent if we need to add it. The above ground would be the most difficult portion because that's traditionally funded through a PAYGO or maybe transportation funds. And as we know, we just discussed, we have a big possible, depending on how August goes with a vote, there may be a big priority related to a public safety project. So all of that would have to be looked into.
And could I ask, I know that we've already discussed our capital projects in our budget retreat, but we essentially started with, we have this $1.2 billion unfunded gap, but that includes a lot of the stormwater, wastewater, actually a very large chunk. If perhaps in our next budget meeting, even though it's focused on operating, if we could get a list out of the unfunded capital projects, just so we see what our competing needs are, because in many ways, we're dealing with a zero-sum game here.
Correct, Chair. Actually, there was a request during the June Capital One that to actually have a couple of slides on that concept of what are the outstanding gaps that we know or don't know, that we either have quantified already or we believe that will be coming up. So the different departments have been providing that information to the budget department, and there will be some slides to show, and this will be an example of a known gap of what we will have to identify funding in the future. But yes, we're working on that right now. Thank you.
No comment. shockingly.
I don't think for this,
I
we are taking.
I think this
action.
item could just be closed out. There's no action to be taken. They could be closed out, and that would be.
But I mean, I think it leads to a broader conversation where we have a lot of priorities, right? A lot of things that are important to a lot of people and unidentified funding needs. And perhaps we need to be proactive in going out and identifying additional revenue opportunities, because when we have, let's call it a $10 million surplus every single year, that's, knock on wood, that's if property valuations remain strong and growing at a double-digit or near double-digit rate. We are having a lot of competing interests and priorities for a lot of these numbers. So we're prioritizing a lot of things, and when you prioritize everything, nothing is a priority. So perhaps we have to have broader discussions about giving all of these high priority items. They're starting to get very big ticket, and perhaps not satisfied by just, okay, we have a $5 million surplus this year. Do we have to go out and enhance our revenue in some ways that we're not just leaving things up to chance?
Chair, if I may, I completely agree with you. I think we'll start that conversation. I think we've already started that conversation, and I think we'll continue that at the July 12th budget workshop. And then I think we'll have a little more clarity after August, and then there's clear direction how to move forward on certain capital projects. And then November, when we do our closeout budget amendment with any of the general fund surplus, as by commission policy, those dollars are to be rolled into our capital reserve, but we often modify that a bit, and we can look at those priorities, because if we have a large known gap for a project at that time, it could be directed specifically to a specific project or just put aside to be determined at a later point. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll close this out. Thank you all.
We've lost quorum, as the city attorney mentioned, we lost
Mr.
quorum.
CFO, are there any other items that we could hear and that we don't need to take action on? It's incredibly unfortunate that for I'm not sure what reasons that we've just lost quorum. But if there's items that are important for anybody else, we won't be able to hear them today, given that we've lost quorum. Are there any items that we could close out that don't require action?
I think number 21, related to the hiring of additional detention officers, could be, like Commissioner Fernandez's request, to be forwarded to the July 12th. Could just be discussed at the July, we could close it out here and just be discussed as an enhancement at the July 12th.
That's actually my item. Is that a thing that we can do?
Yeah, yes, I believe you can close it out and discuss, because you can't take action here. You can't send it back to commission,
So
make a priority.
can we hear what Deputy Chief has to say,
I think you can have that discussion.
just so there are no surprises?
Yes, ma'am, Deputy Chief Acosta again. Madam Commissioner, this is regarding the enhancement of 2 detention officers to improve our operational readiness on a 24-hour period for the police department. It allows police officers to be police officers that maintain visibility out in the street and do the work that they're being asked to do, and allow detention officers to deal with all prisoners that are incoming into the police station or need to be transported to TGK. Quite often, police officers are at TGK for a vast amount of hours. It impacts calls for service back here in the city. Allowing these addition of 2 really improves our readiness as a police department. So the department is for these 2 additional detention officers. It does come at a cost, but before I get into that cost, we think and we anticipate that this will reduce our overtime budget for detention officers between $45,000 and $55,000 a year by adding these 2. There are startup costs when you hire any new police officer or detention officer in this case. There's salaries, benefits, police cars, radios, tasers, body-worn cameras, and things of that nature. If we are looking at 2 detention officers, we're looking at a startup cost of $344 for the first year, and then a reduction in year 2 to $236,000. If we're doing 1 as an example, it's half of that cost on each.
Deputy Chief, when we had a discussion previously about staffing, I believe one of the camera centers or perhaps real-time intelligence units, we essentially said, I think it was about that area, but, okay, these will not be your full-born police officers, so they're actually coming at a lesser cost. I think it was about the real-time intelligence
Yes.
service, right?
Yes.
The officers here, the detention officers, are they required to be, are
Sworn.
that come at a higher expense, or is there a scaled-down version at a lower cost if these are largely kind of processing and transportation related?
Well, they are part of our city's bargaining unit. They fall under the FOP as well in terms of benefits and salaries. They do come at a cost that's lower than the hiring of a police officer. That's why we went with the detention officer program. They are sworn, they carry firearms. And they're basically, if you look at them side by side, with the exception of the patch, they look like police officers. But their duties are solely centered around the prisoner processing and making sure that the safe transport over to the TGK facility. And then they relieve officers so they can remain on the street doing police work.
Yeah. So I appreciate the information. Unfortunately, I don't think we can do anything with it.
Yeah, but I could just share this item as just item as heard and forwarded to the July 12th for budget workshop. And we'll close it out.
Okay, we'll be ready, sir. Okay. Thank you.
So if we lose quorum, is the meeting adjourned by default, or do we have to make a motion for that?
Can't make a motion.
Make a motion for meeting? Yeah.
No, I'll second Joe's.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make an exception since you don't have to.
Thank you all. Thank you all for
Thank you.
the time today.